call to order the March meeting of the Anderson County Charter Commission. Ask the clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Meade,
Here.
Commissioner Smallridge,
Here.
Commissioner Fritz,
Here.
Commissioner Emmert, Commissioner Isbell,
Here.
Commissioner White, Commissioner Bochamp. Here. Commissioner Stonesifer.
Present.
6 here, 2 absent.
Okay, thank you. If you would, please stand for the prayer led by Commissioner Fritz and remain standing for the pledge led by Commissioner Meade.
Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you, Lord, for the many blessings you've given us. Times we are so unworthy, Lord, but you continue to love us and care for us. And we are so grateful for everything that you've done. And Father, we just ask now that you just be with our country, Lord. And Father, we just ask that you just be with our leaders, Lord, and because now is the time to pray for our country and our leaders, and ask that they, at one this time, everything that's going on, Father, that we put politics aside and work together to come to help solve a lot of the problems that we have going on in this country and worldwide. And Lord, now we just ask that you just be with this committee tonight, Lord, as we conduct the business of this county. Open our hearts and our minds, Lord, and that everything we do would be to for the betterment of the citizens of this county and to uplift and glorify you. Forgive us when we fail you. For in Jesus' name I pray.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge of the flag. Hand salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think all of you have a copy of the February 7th minutes. Any discussions or corrections to be made?
Move to approve the February 7th minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Likewise. Motion carries.
I have a motion to revise the agenda, change Monday to Tuesday.
That's a good,
So the one that goes on record will have the right day of the week.
I don't think we need a motion for that. We'll just do it. You know, we get having a meeting on Monday, it's hard to go Tuesday, I guess, than anything. But, not a problem. This is the time we normally hear from citizens, but I don't see any, so we'll move on. If someone shows up, we'll certainly recognize them. And this time I'll turn it over to Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Always an honor to be with you guys, lady. I'm gonna let Gavin go first tonight. We've got Gavin Smeltzer with outside counsel, Owens and Coleman, here. He's gonna go over some edits that you had, explain them to you. If we have enough time, we're gonna move into some private acts. Ladies in my office are gonna bring those over in just a few minutes. What we're gonna need to do is go back through all these old private acts, and decide if we need them or not. The vast majority of them we don't need. They've been superseded by new legislation, both statutory and new private acts, and we just don't need them. We need to get them off the books. But we'll get that knocked out. Again, we may need to start meeting twice a month here, depending on your schedule. We want to try to do it on the August general election or the November. We always thought we would have a few months for educational opportunities for the citizens, but keeping that in mind also. But I'm going to let Gavin start tonight, and then we'll see how much time left and see how much you can sustain, how long people want to stay here tonight. But we'll keep going as long as you can. We had a very long county commission meeting last night. Most of us didn't get home till after midnight, but I don't know how much energy you have. I'm kind of low on the tank myself, but we'll just play it by ear and see how we go. But anyway, Gavin Smeltzer, thank you, sir.
Well, I have a question
Yeah.
first.
Yes, sir.
Did we get anything with any corrections on it?
Yes, he's gonna go over those corrections right now.
Yes, sir, Mr.
But
Chairman.
I don't have a copy of it.
Oh, I can run over there. He sent them to me. You don't have copies?
I don't.
Okay, you wanna get up and, or talk or take a break? I'll run over there and get them right
Okay,
now.
sure, I can,
That's no problem.
Yeah,
can
Thank
kind of
you.
start going through.
That'll be a lot easier. I'm so sorry.
there we go. That's what we really need to do.
That's
Well,
a relief.
Yeah, those are our copies. Because I had the one from several days ago, and that one was two different versions, and I looked to see what had been changed, and I mean, I didn't get home until 11:30 last night, but I was up until 4:30 in the morning looking through all this stuff to be ready for today.
Well, I'm
And
sorry.
my wife still got me up at 8 o'clock this morning. So if I drift off, just have somebody slap me.
Yeah, I've sent out a copy with some comments and changes, looking at Jay's handwritten notes in the margins, and looking at the minutes that have been passed from prior meetings to try to get it more in line with the current system in Anderson County and to get it into a more finished product. I don't really know if there's a benefit of going ahead and going through it unless you all have a copy, or if you'd like me to start, I can.
No, if you would give me just a minute, please, I need to ask a question. If we have, if we start having 2 meetings a month, what would be the best date? Everybody
As
else?
long as it doesn't interfere with existing commission meetings, I can beat almost anything.
Budget meetings.
Yeah, well, with commission-related meetings.
Yeah.
Wednesday is about the only day that we can kind of pick now, say that it's available.
Hmm.
It'll be Monday and Wednesday.
It'll work for me.
That'll work for me. I already had my week out of town for this year, so.
Well, I have 2, but Wednesday's not a good,
For some people, that's not a good evening.
right now for me.
How about this is a Tuesday? Is Tuesday work out okay? I mean, that's okay for me, yeah.
Well, not the first Tuesday, because BZA and Planning Commission meets in here,
Yeah.
so it'd have to be,
What about the 3rd Tuesday?
We have the Monday, the first Monday, and then the
third Tuesday.
next Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever that's open. I don't think, as long as it's about 2 weeks between the meetings,
That's
it
what I'm
doesn't have to
saying.
be exactly 2 weeks.
3rd Tuesday? Is that a conflict with any of the,
It is for me.
it is for you?
Yeah, our volunteer fire department meets on the third Tuesday. Unless you push it back to 5 o'clock.
No, if I'm the only one that's got a conflict on Wednesday, I'll make it work. So we'll do it the first Monday and 3rd Wednesday?
And then.
First Monday and third Wednesday, right? Yeah, that works.
And the third Tuesday, the planning commission's been meeting. To come up with a new plan for the county.
Okay.
We're meeting twice a month as well.
And so that'll still work, first Monday and the third Tuesday, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or did we say
Third
Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. I will make it work.
Go ahead, Gavin. If there's anything you wanted to,
I was just gonna jump right on into, the changes that have been made. Like I said, I don't know if I'm talking and referencing something.
There's some things we can get out of the way, like we just
Okay,
had a discussion
sure.
about some of them.
Sure,
Like, for instance, on the last copy we got, it refers to the county commissioners board, and what we'd asked is it to be commission, to make it different than the other boards, the school board, and there's various other boards they would be referred to. The commission would be the legislative body.
I have corrected that, but in my notes, I have from the minutes of the October meeting, I believe, there was a motion passed to make it, county legislative body.
yes,
So that's what I have in there.
that's what I thought it was.
Throughout,
Okay.
board, anytime you see it in that copy, it's been changed to.
I don't have any difficulty with that, but instead of one word, we're gonna have county legislative body, which is. Yeah.
That's, or body. Knox County's charter sometimes uses the one word body. Body's capitalized. It's up to you all on that, but that's a nitpicky thing. It's up to you all.
What did we find wrong with just saying commission?
I wasn't
Because that doesn't
in attendance
conflict,
that
there's
night.
no other body that's called a commission in the county government. Really?
We talked about that, and we said it'd be the legislative body, and I don't know exactly why.
I think that's because that's what the state recognizes it as. I think that's what Jay had.
Yeah, I think in the state, in the Tennessee code annotated, it usually refers to the county legislative body. And so that's why,
Well, we could start that and say, referred to in this as the commission, or whatever, put it in the
Yeah.
definitions, put the commission.
no, I'd be in favor of that, because county legislative body instead of just commission seems like
Well, what did you say was meeting on Tuesday? The reason you couldn't meet that one time, the fire commission was meeting?
Fire commission and
but they're always referred to as fire commission, this commission, that commission,
Culprit Coleman.
and we could be referred to as county commission, but since, if it's the only thing referred to as commission in the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I do think it needs to be defined that the county legislative body,
Right.
and then say that it may be referred to as the commission.
I mean, paperwork could always be county legislative body. We still call it county commission all the time. I mean,
Yeah,
but our paperwork always still refers to as legislative body, because that's what we are.
well, we're also called the Board of County Commissioners. But then, like you said, in the Tennessee code, they refer to us as the county legislative body. I don't know.
That is it.
Which way we go on that,
Tennessee
I
code.
am not gonna lose any sleep over either way we go.
And a lot of boards.
Yeah,
We
lots
have
of
a lot of
boards.
boards, yeah.
There's lots of boards. But we just can't be referred to as board. There's too many boards.
That has been corrected in
Yeah,
this
and that's
most recent
what they-
draft.
The other thing that we talked about is in section 202, part B, it talks about the board shall strive annually a resolution for independent audit. And actually, we have an audit done by the comptroller annually, is the way it's done now. And he's informed me that that's already been revised in this new copy we're going to get.
That is correct.
Yeah, but I think a lot of things, might revolve around the 81 Financial Act?
Oh, yeah, yeah, because
Mhm.
that establishes a lot of the way we've been doing business
Sure.
for years.
Sure.
I also talked about the fact that there's nothing in here that says this is the authorities and duties of the finance director, which is really discussed in detail in the 81 Act, but the
Sure.
finance director is what their power is. And that's pretty important, because there's a couple places in this copy where it talks about the mayor may promulgate rules, regulations to administer the purchasing procedures and established by ordinance. You know, and under the 81 Act, the mayor doesn't do that at all. She doesn't have anything with that. She
Well-
has an oversight role of everything going on in the county,
Mhm.
but she doesn't run the stuff that's all assigned to the finance director.
Well, if I may say something on that, what I'm thinking on that is, the way that it was originally drafted, Article 3, the executive power, that of the mayor, that's a lot of the Finance Act. The way it was originally drafted was for general purposes. The powers and the rights and duties of the mayor, how it was drafted, was just found in general law. With the enactment of the 81 Act, what I'm thinking, and this is what I'm going to have to discuss with Jay, is to draft the executive article and other articles to not conflict with the 81 Act, and then include the 81 Act later on in the general provisions. And so you have the 81 Act come in to the charter government, but it doesn't conflict with any text in the third article. If that,
Yeah, would there be a way that, let's say that they came up with the 2022 Act,
right.
and we decided we really like that better than the 81 Act.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have to wait to the 8th year to do a revision of the charter or something? Or can we do this in such a way that the county commission
Mhm.
continues to have the authority to determine which financial act we operate under?
Well, I think
And it
that's a
isn't-
good point.
It doesn't specify the article, it can
Mhm.
specify the one that we're currently in. But
Right.
not that it's dictated by the charter.
My understanding, and this is subject to review by John and Jay, my understanding is if you could do it two ways, you could have it in the charter, which would require, it to be the charter to be amended, say in the instance of a 2022 Act being passed, fiscal act. You'd have to amend the charter, and that'd be a long, laborious process, and you wouldn't want to do that. Or, on the other hand, you could do it by ordinance, is my understanding. If you did it by ordinance, you adopt it after the charter's passed. It's done by ordinance, and then and then to change it, it's
It
just
would give
two
us the
readings.
authority to use an ordinance to change the financial.
Correct.
Management Act.
That's my understanding. And that was something I was
Well,
going to discuss with Jay tonight.
It's my opinion, that's the way we should go. We shouldn't be locked in. I just don't wanna make it easy to change the Financial Management Act, because I think the 81 is ideal, and it does a lot of things that are important to the county.
Mhm.
Primarily having a professional organization running finance that reports to the commission, and if they don't do their job, we can replace them in the next meeting.
Well, I have a
I
question.
mean, that's how I worked my whole life. I had this agreement, they could fire me any day I was doing it.
For the ones of you that are on commission now, when the new commission comes in, do you make those decisions, or is that sort of set there? And if
No,
so,
that's established. We've already done that in this past, and that's a permanent change until we decide to change it again. But if we go to a charter, and we actually make it part of the charter, saying that under the charter, this is what you will do, that means you'd have to actually do a change to the charter to change the financial act. What he's saying is we can give under the charter the authority to commission to change the financial act if which ever should come, that there's a new one is more advantageous to us, without going into the laborious and opening up the charter to revision, to do something that's relatively straightforward and easy to understand, like changing financial act if there's some significant advantage to us. I mean, those acts don't come out very often. We went from 57 to 81.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like they change those things a lot. I think there is another one newer than that now, though.
I think there are,
There's
yeah,
a 91
maybe,
or something.
yeah. But that was one of my questions that I had for you all tonight, how we were gonna structure that, but I was, wait,
Okay, well,
I
here
wanted to
comes
confer with,
our legal guy here. You're just talking about,
No legal questions.
the Financial Service Act, the Financial Management, the 81 Act.
Right.
That if we put it in the charter as, under the charter, this is what we have to do.
Right.
That locks it in, it takes a charter revision to change it.
That's correct.
Or he was saying that it may be possible to have it under the charter, that under an ordinance, the commission has the authority to change the financial act.
Yeah, I would,
And so that,
I think there's three ways to do
Yeah.
it, okay? You can have it embodied in the charter, or you can have it, as an optional ordinance that would take a recreation, or, I suppose we could put it there as something that's already passed and give authority to county commission to change it at a later date. What do you think?
that's correct, yeah.
So, I think there's three ways to do it. If you, this is a very contentious issue, the 81 Act, but I do, think we need to respect the future commissions. They may want to change it to the 57 Act or whatever.
yeah,
So
and I don't believe that'll happen, but there could be a 2023 act
Of course.
that we like,
So what, I guess you're leaning to the same thing I'm leaning at, that you should give the ability to change that to the county commission without having to do, an actual amendment to the charter.
Now,
And that's the way it basically is set up in state statute, that the county commission can adopt those optional fiscal management acts.
When we did that take a 2/3 majority vote?
think
or
so.
was it- Yeah, I think it takes 2/3, and I would want it to be the same in the charter. Be a
Right.
2/3 majority
Just-
act to change it.
Just reference that
Yeah.
set of statutes, but, I think that's probably the way to take it.
my question is, if you do it the way we're talking about here,
Giving
we
future
need
county commissions the ability to change it.
yeah, but if we did that, would we need to put the duties and things of the chief financial officer in?
No, you
Sure.
just adopt a set of statutes, and the set of statutes control.
Well, do we
The only
need to?
flexible point there in the 81 Act is the ability to adopt policies by the finance committee. So, that would still be the same. You would have put in there, you can adopt the 81 Financial Management Act, and that whole set of statutes would apply at that point. If somebody wanted to change to it.
Yeah.
Or the 57 Act, you want to change the 57 Act. Once you adopt the 57 Act, you're adopting all those statutes that go with it.
I'd still like to see someplace in the charter where at least refers to the finance director and is operating in accordance with the current,
Sure.
finance act.
Oh, I do believe we need to put in there that, we're all.
Because the copy I have, there's no listing for the finance director, and that's a pretty
Correct.
important position
Right.
in our government.
I think the budget committee, the finance committee,
Yeah.
the finance committee is the one that actually oversees and sets the
Yeah.
policies. They select a finance director, it's a very important committee.
Did you bring us anything to?
They're coming,
Oh,
coming
okay.
across the street, that Gavin
I'm-
41, that's my fault.
I'm sorry,
I don't know what I was thinking, he sent me an attachment, I should have offered to print them.
I'm sorry, I
could
should
have
have printed
knocked
it
out,
before I come.
But no, they're walking across the street with those private acts, it was only, I told them only to make 8 copies, so we'll be in business here pretty soon. That brings me to an interesting question, on the private acts, I was telling Gavin before the meeting, we were looking at them, there's an existing private act, that's still in effect, that gives gives the county executive, it's old, the power to do purchasing and budgeting. Now, the way that happened was, county commission years ago requested the General Assembly to do a private act to allow. They didn't have an optional set of statutes that they could adopt. So later on, when the optional set of statutes came into play, the 57 Act, County Commission adopted the 57 Act without repealing that private act. You can see how it happens. They're not the same, they're apples and oranges. Now, if you'd adopted a new private act, you could have put a provision there that said this supersedes the old act. But we've got one on the books, and there's several places that I'm glad we're going through them, but hey, they're still in effect and they conflict with what we do right now. And this is a good exercise for us to go through those.
And really, it conflicts with state law because we're operating under the 81 Financial Act.
Well,
Yeah,
It's
but
been
see,
legally adopted by the county.
not necessarily, because it's a private act. See, what I'm saying is one is an optional set of statutes that can be adopted by the county commission. Okay, the other is a private act. They're not the same. So that private act still stood even though the county commission at that time opted into the 57 Act. So that's why it's still on the book, and it's in conflict with what we do now. It's more similar to the 57 Act, but it's nowhere near the 81 Act. But anyway, we're going to find more examples of those conflicts, because anytime you have a private act up against a optional set of statutes, then that kind of conflict develops real quick. It's not caught. It's not like a new private act. It's
Be a good chance to clean that up.
Exactly. I mean, we've got some private acts that date back to the early 1800s. They just need to go. And the way we've talked about this,
but how did they
Well,
go?
and the ones we have don't get enforced anyhow, so.
well, some of them do. We've got several that are very important to county government. There's no doubt about that. But Gavin and I and John Owens have talked about this. Even though there's that provision in the charter statutes that says those private acts stand, you know, that separate and apart. You and I have talked about that before. We feel like that if you want you need to go back and put in the charter that these private acts still stand, reference them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because there's some AG opinions that appear to be in conflict with that statute that is problematic. And we don't want to have to go back to a new county commission and adopt several new private acts and send them down to the General Assembly. That process doesn't work.
Yeah,
right
this
now.
time of year is a bad time to
Yeah,
send right
it
now.
is. So we could be in a very bad jam there. So I think the best course of action and the answer to that is decide which ones you want to keep and reference those in the charter. That these are still valid and in effect in Anderson County.
Legally, how does it work? If we have a charter that's approved by the people, approved by the state, and goes into effect, and in that charter it says the following private acts will stay in place. Does that mean any not listed are therefore
I
void?
assume so when you get it.
That is my understanding.
Yeah. Because there's an actual, it's not written this way, but the way John puts it is, it's a reset of county government. So when you adopt a charter, it's a new form of government. And if you want to keep those private acts, and correct me if you don't agree, Gavin, we need to put them in the charter, reference them in the charter, and just exactly like Commissioner Meads pointed out, you need to say, these are still in effect in Anderson County.
Well, let me ask a question along that line. If the charter doesn't pass, how do you get rid of those private acts?
Well, we could just petition, just like you do, the way you repeal a private act is the identical process to adopting a private
It has to go through the state legislature.
Yes, you first have a 2/3 vote from the county commission to send it down to Nashville and say you want to repeal this private act. Then once the General Assembly takes that up, votes in favor of it, they send it back, and then we have to have had a 2/3 vote on the other end, the back end, confirmation vote. So I think that would be the whole process. We could probably do them all at one time.
Yeah,
Say
do it
we
as a
want-
group.
Want to repeal all these if they're in conflict with what we're doing right now. Any other questions along that line or any line here while we're waiting for the ladies to?
This is all very useful discussion.
Yeah.
So just because we don't list them in the charter, they're not automatically repealed, is that?
Well,
They're not
no,
automatically.
if you don't list them in the charter, we believe that they're automatically
passes.
repealed. Because of the theory that it's a reset of county government. Thank you all so much. These are wonderful ladies I have in my office that stay late to help. Now, you can come here just a second. This is Gavin's, right?
Yeah,
The red, that's 8, and then
the ones that are,
this
the ones
is
that are not
CTAS,
listed.
and where's the book?
It's all together, so CTAS is a problem and the book is right
Oh,
here.
wonderful. Thank you, ladies.
That'll definitely
The
be.
charter doesn't.
This is what Gavin's working on.
Then we gotta come back and say, you know, we've identified these are unnecessary. In fact, contradictory with what we're doing. That won't be hard. The thing is, it can't be introduced now until next year. Because they're beyond.
I'm gonna have Gavin get started. In the meantime, I'll pass you out some other stuff that we'll be working on later. Go ahead, Gavin.
Okay, like I said, these comments and revisions are based off of the minutes, from past meetings and from handwritten notes from Jay's drafts. So I'm pretty much just gonna go through and talk about, some revisions that were made. I have some questions about some that I think we might maybe have some more discussion. I'm not sure. But I'll just start on the first page. I think we decided to eliminate the use of the term home rule. I think that was a decision between Jay and me, and then changed Steve to Stephen.
Now stop him if you see something that you want changed.
Yes, my name, I'd ask it to be changed to Stephen, and I said they did that with Emmert, but not with me.
Yeah.
It's-
Tell me again, what page we're on here?
Okay, is it, are,
First one of this book.
This,
Yeah.
You got it.
We already
First
have
page.
the
We're looking at names right now.
commission
Yeah.
members.
okay.
is everybody okay with the names?
Except for Steve Mead.
I don't think Steve Emmert was supposed to be changed to Stephen Emmert. I think he wanted his name to be
Yeah,
changed.
it's exact. Move Stephen down to Steve Mead
Okay.
and leave Steve
Yeah,
Emmert.
Steve Emmert always goes by Steve.
I only have one L in my name.
Yeah, correct. Everybody else okay with page 1? Okay, you ready, Kevin? They've done this on front and back, so be careful. Trying to save little trees.
The table of contents, that's gonna be the last thing to decide. I'm on page 6, if anybody is. It's the very first.
The rest is just table of contents, and that will be finalized when it's.
Right, when everything is, when all the page numbers are set.
I gotta start track this. Unfortunately, this has got numbered pages, the last draft I had does not. Let's see here. Let me get back.
Okay, I changed of to for there. That's, there weren't many comments on the first article. If there's any questions, I think that was the only
That's
change on the
correct.
first article, from both the minutes and the notes. The next page, page 7, at the very bottom, I saw a note, I think, from Jay's handwritten notes, and I wanted to question, if there was, if that sentence was okay, or,
No.
you want it
The
stricken?
county court and the legislative body is the Board of Commissioners or County Commission. Then the mayor is a separate entity.
Correct.
So she wouldn't have any, or he or she wouldn't have any authority to perform the acts of the county board of commissioners. Isn't that what it says? I'm looking at the bottom of page 7, whenever any public or private act of the state of Tennessee purports to authorize the county court, the legislative body or
Mhm.
the mayor to perform any administrative or executive act or function, then such act or function shall be performed by the mayor.
I think that's in there because it's talking about administrative and executive actions, which are normally the mayor's duties anyway, but if
That goes back to the old, thought on, mayor's override or veto. She or he cannot, veto administrative acts, only legislative acts. You see where I'm at on that?
Sure, yeah.
I would rather, the mayor is the executive branch, the county commissioner, board of commissioners is your legislative branch. I'd like to keep those separate and apart.
sure,
You follow me on that?
yeah,
And not blend any functions right there. I think the
True.
acts that are, the statutes or private acts that require the board of commissioners, county court, county commission, any of those terms need to stay with this body because they're separate. And then the same thing with the mayor. They authorize the mayor, it stays in the mayor's realm of authority. I don't think it's probably a good idea to blend that.
okay,
Yeah,
You follow me?
Because there's a very clear separation, particularly under the 81 Act. It's
Well,
really,
government as a
Yeah.
whole, you've got three
yeah, three
basic
branches.
branches. We don't wanna blend them. That's just my desire. Anybody different on that?
Yeah, I agree. They need to be distinct.
Chuck,
Yes, sir.
Tim, you guys have been around here a long time. You understand what I'm saying? Keep the duties for the county commission separate and apart from the duties of the county mayor. Now, the mayor's always, technically an ex officio of county commission, non-voting member, but, that's not part of the legislative branch. The county mayor is the executive branch. Okay. Can you take a look at that one?
yes, sir. In B, I added the finance committee, finance director, or mayor. That was per Jay's notes. I think this goes along with what I was thinking earlier about drafting the whole charter and specifically Article 3, not to conflict with the 81 Act, and then incorporate it. So I think that does well to.
That's really difficult. When you look at it, you think that's fairly simple, but when you try to put the framework together, then you conflict with the provisions of the 81 Act.
Mhm,
I understand what you're going through there, that's gotta be hard.
mhm.
Because when I was going through it, I said, well, that sounds good here, but when you look at the 81 Act, it gives the powers here.
Mhm.
That's one of those things, I'm glad sometimes we've got optional financial management act statutes, but sometimes I say I wish we all operate the same across the state under a uniform set of statutes, and that's not what happens. Go ahead, Gavin.
In E, can I just ask, is that good with you, the finance committee, finance director or mayor? Is that what you?
Well,
If you want me to think
the
about it
way-
some more and get back.
the way the 81 Act says, that's under the purview of the finance committee and finance director, and you have the optional purchasing agent to promulgate rules and regulations to administer the purchasing procedures established by ordinance. I don't think it gives any power to the mayor
Okay.
on that area.
No, she's a member of the finance committee.
Committee. And remember that old, it's not that old, it's 20 years old, that AG opinion that says the mayor has 1/9 responsibility over the budget, and which means including the finance committee and the purchasing. We decided not to hire an individual purchasing agent. Robbie does those duties, and hired a deputy purchasing agent, and that's Catherine Ajmeri. So Robbie still has that two blended roles. He holds two hats. He's the finance director, and that's allowable under the 81 Act, and he's also the purchasing agent. But that's the only thing I have there with the mayor.
Sure.
Scratching the mayor.
Yeah, because that conflicts with the 81 Act, and this is a perfect example of what we talked about before. Normally, you'd look at that and say, well, that's okay, but when you think about the framework of the 81 Act, it doesn't allow that. It sets those rules are made by the Finance Committee.
So on the top of page 8 of this new one, or the mayor, should be deleted.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of the
Now,
ones that I
you
marked.
know, if we ever change back to the 57 or another optional financial management, we'd have to
That would
come
be
back
right.
and change that
Yeah.
back if that set of statutes allow the mayor to have more authority there.
In E, I think the minutes indicate that the mayor does have the veto power
Yes.
over the indebtedness. That was changed.
Yes.
H, I think I had a question on H. I think it said not used at this time, but I think you had another note. I was going to strike it. I think you had something like ethics board subpoena witnesses, and I wanted to ask you about that before I struck it there. And I think I can, the minutes.
I like that you put this in there.
Okay.
It does give the county legislative body more power. It gives them the power to call witnesses. They have the power for public hearings now. They've got subpoena power under this, administer oaths, and
I think that's what we asked for, wasn't it?
yes,
In that paragraph B, shouldn't or mayor be deleted there as well?
I'm
It
sorry,
says she's
Steve.
promulgates rules and regulations to
Yeah,
administer the
we
purchase.
just went through that.
Yeah, okay. But there's also a spot above that, at the top of the page, that is part of the change.
Yeah, we've been through that too, though. We
Yeah.
agreed to change that and A and B. And then Gavin's asking about H, and I don't know about y'all, it's your decision, but I like H. Now, that's new. That gives the county legislative body a little bit more power in public hearings. They can call a public hearing now, but, under this provision, if there's a violation of this charter or particular ordinance, they can subpoena witnesses,
Yep.
administer an oath, and that's a little bit different than what we do now.
But did we vote on that before?
Yeah, we talked about it and agreed it was okay, but, I don't think you took a vote on it. I went over it and
But
spoke about it. I told you before it's new,
we-
but, that's,
Saber, what'd you?
I just said I like it.
Yeah.
now this is gonna
Okay.
be, I don't want them to have the power over ethics complaints because that's a separate body, the ethics committee.
Yeah.
Basically, does all the ethics violations, and thank goodness we don't have a lot of those, but then again, please remember, this is something new and different. Most of us, said we were gonna try to hold it to as few changes as we possibly could make here. And, that's what, I guess most of the citizens that we've spoken to, or most the disinterested citizens that don't appear and speak their mind, by implication, I believe they don't want any changes, because we certainly haven't had a parade of people come to the lectern here and say, I'd like to see this changed.
Yeah.
But, we've always said we try to keep the changes to a bare minimum, but this is a change here.
Okay, now-
It's H on page 8.
Yeah. There's a part there that I'm having problems with.
Okay, go ahead.
Considering proposed legislative body legislation, or 2, investigating any allegation of violation of this charter ordinance or emergency ordinances of this brought by either the mayor or any member of the legislative body. So the mayor single-handedly has the authority to make a complaint, but then so does any county commissioner. Isn't that what that says?
Yes, but
Any elected official.
against any elected official or
Yeah.
employee of the legislative body.
Can
brought by
There's
either
only
the
one
mayor or
employee
any
of the
member of the
legislative
legislative body.
There's only one employee of the legislative body, and that's Annette. And actually, she's an employee of the county clerk now under the current, right? Is that the way it is? Mary was the employee of the county commission, but we may need to,
It just uses the term member, brought by the mayor or any member of the legislative body.
I understand what you're saying. You think that,
That's
But-
fine.
excuse me?
I think the way this reads is fine.
Okay.
The mayor
I was
or
gonna-
any county commissioner
Exactly. But
can initiate a complaint.
to initiate, okay, I would assume you need at least a simple majority there to hold them liable or responsible. But then when you read on down, against any elected official or employee of the legislative body, what are you thinking there, Gavin? Employee, you thinking members of the legislative body are employees? Because they're not by Tennessee law. They're
Yeah.
elected officials.
Mhm.
Or are you thinking about any employee
Any
that the
county.
legislative body hires? Because that, we don't have that.
Mhm.
You might wanna just say,
Yeah, I see what
or
you're saying.
cut off that employee, official or employee, and just scratch that of the legislative body.
Got it.
Yeah.
Are you following me on this?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
So, stop that sentence at
Well,
official or employee, period,
I have a question there
then
Jay.
scratch of legislative body. Yes, sir.
before we start doing that. When it talks about any elected official, because those elected officials have employees. And does this mean that we're talking about the employees working under that elected official?
They're employees of county government, that the way I read it, an elected official or an employee.
Yeah, so if we did have an employee, that would be included, and if we don't have an employee, then the person's not.
Two separate
now
parts.
we have one.
Elected official or employee. Is that the way you're
Yes,
seeing it?
employee of the county government.
Right?
I mean, what you're saying is conflict. You're saying that a while ago, that there wasn't any employees.
Of the legislative body.
Yes,
Right. Remember, we had one, that was Mary Murphy.
right, I understand that,
Yeah,
but
And we moved her to Jeff Code.
exactly. That's what I turned around and confirmed with Annette. Annette's actually working under the county clerk now on loan to the county commission.
so this
So we have
does,
no employee.
this does include the people working, say, for the clerks.
Yes.
Okay.
Any employee is the way
Okay.
you wanna add any employee? Or is that enough?
Yeah, I can add any in there.
Or any employee of the county, is that what we're talking about?
County government,
County government.
or county, yeah, that's how I read it.
Yeah, it could easily be misconstrued there once we adopt ordinances, to the legislative body would, be the trier of fact on those, when that's not true. A lot of the ordinances, and like I told you, a couple of times, Chuck has a great idea. I fully support of having our environmental cases, our planning and zoning cases, written on a citation by ordinance to the General Sessions Court. So that General Sessions Court would be the trier of fact on the vast majority of those. And same as if we adopt the Uniform Traffic Code for the Sheriff's Office, the trier of fact on that would be the General Sessions Court, not the legislative body. And Chuck brought up a great point last night about trying to get pay increases for some of our severely underfunded, underpaid departments that have tremendous turnover. And we've always done something that's been very fair, I thought, is given across the board raise. But apparently, there's certain positions in certain departments that we're having terrible turnover with. And we're investing all this money in training these people, and they're going to different
Oh, yeah.
agencies. And it's a revolving door, we've gotta stop that. So as Chuck was speaking last night on a way to adjust their pay, and he specifically talked about sheriff's office, detention facility, EMS, and, maybe even the highway department or some others. And I know this is not popular with the general county employee. They want to see it administered across the board. But, one way to fund those is by the revenues, that are created through the ordinances. See, if you adopt that uniform traffic code, or you put a punitive fine with an ordinance, it's adjudicated in general sessions court. Instead of sending that money to Nashville, it stays here at home, and to help offset the cost of government. So that may be a funding mechanism we can look at, Chuck, that, we were all struggling with. You had a good point on it last night, but the whole issue is where do we get the money? And, we need, it's a reoccurring expense. We need to find something where that funding stream is always gonna be there. Take care of that, not just one-time money. And you're the best one putting out a speech on that one-time versus reoccurring that I've ever heard. So I'm trying to, put it in the way you would put it, but that's one idea that we can look at. But that's not here tonight, but that's something to consider in the future.
So
All right.
this stays as is?
No. Just wanna put a period after, we're talking about section H.
Yeah.
Third line up from the bottom, period after employee,
Okay,
or he might put of the county or something, but he's gonna scratch that of the legislative body,
all right.
because we have no employees of the legislative.
Employee of county government, I think is.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Okay.
Okay.
Jay, you
Yeah.
said something about ethics violations. Does an ethic violation ever come to commission or resolution? No.
No, they go to the ethics committee.
Committee.
And, that's where they go, but, we've had that ethics committee in place now since 2007. And what we're finding is that the vast majority of people that file ethics complaints are, number one, we don't have the jurisdiction, the ethics committee doesn't have jurisdiction over them. Number two, if you look at the ethics policy, if it's criminal in any nature, it goes straight to the DA or a law enforcement official, and that's what's been happening.
Yeah.
We've had one that I know of came to be adjudicated at the Ethics Commission level. And, the vast majority of them that come through are not violations of the ethics policy. People think they are, but they're not. The jurisdiction is well defined in the ethics policy, or they're flat out just criminal violations that come initially as an ethics complaint. When you look at them, it's a criminal violation. So the first thing that happens there is when you review them, you look at the ethics policy and it says they shall be directed to the law enforcement or the DA, because the ethics committee has no jurisdiction to prosecute a criminal crime. So that's the way it usually plays out.
In section I, I had a question about the last sentence on, it's on page 9, the top of,
Yeah.
thereof.
I think that if that last one that's colored up there, I think that should end with by a 2/3 vote or something. That shouldn't be a simple majority vote, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steve. What we're talking about here is if the legislative body has a member that, for one reason or the other is not showing up, you know, this is a tricky area. I don't think you can remove a member for speaking their piece on an issue. That's what they're up here for, it's a democracy. I don't think you could remove a member for violation of the county commission rules. It's always can be taken up by the chair and the body there, but this would have to be something of, malfeasance or not even coming to the meetings, or maybe, committing a criminal act.
Yeah.
It's gonna be very severe. It's not gonna be talking out of
Yeah.
turn or talking 3 times on a subject. That's not what it's gonna be, so,
Yeah.
That's
That's why it's gonna be a circumstance where it's very clear. And so it's not gonna be something that you'd wanna have passed by one vote.
yeah, I agree with you. I think it should be 2/3 or 3/4 vote.
Do
Yeah.
we need to list that in here so somebody doesn't just think that Yes.
2/3 or 3/4 vote?
I mean, just so,
I mean,
And
good
fence,
cause.
what it should be?
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
even 3/4 vote.
Okay, what she's saying is a different issue. She's saying, should we define what offenses, that you can be found guilty of that would throw you out of an elected position? That's almost like ouster.
Yeah.
The more I think about this, I think maybe the legislative body shall have the authority by resolution, 2/3 or 3/4 vote, to recommend ouster, because that is the legal means in Tennessee to remove an elected official. Removal of an elected official is very difficult to begin with. We've been through this process,
Yeah.
and it's a very complex issue. It's very hard to do in the Tennessee law. There's only 2 mechanisms that I'm aware of, and I could be wrong. There's the ouster mechanism. There's a couple that if you commit crimes that you're immediately gone, and then the circuit court judge has authority to remove the clerk over there, and the chancellor has the authority to remove the clerk and master. Let me digest this just a
Sure.
little bit more. Saber's got good points. Steve's got very
yeah,
good
I just
points.
don't want somebody coming before
don't
commission
either.
every meeting just because they don't like somebody to try
That's
to
right.
then take out time.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and you get
But
personality
it
conflicts,
says
there's no
that the
doubt. but-
legislative body has that authority, not
Exactly.
just the public come in and say, I don't like something, right?
Well, I guess you could have, a legislative body has that authority, but you could have a member of the legislative body or citizens come up and say, hey, I want this person gone. You know, they haven't been to the last 6 meetings, or and kind of initiate that process. That's very delicate, but let me think about that one a little bit more.
Oh, if you have good cause shown and it's not done, that would stop it. There's nothing that keeps somebody from coming into a meeting where they have the right to speak and
But
say
you're-
something ugly.
Your good calls could be different than my good
Yeah,
calls.
exactly.
So
That-
they,
that's such
Yeah,
a-
what
but,
they
but,
see
but
it as.
3/4 of commission or more has to agree for it to.
Oh, I
Yeah,
agree with you on
before.
that. It shouldn't be a simple majority.
Mm.
It's like last month we talked about, the difference in the 66% needed to amend or the 51.
Yeah.
And 51's dangerous, I think. You could have a political party in power that could garner 51% of votes real quick and remove people or whatever. So that's pretty dangerous there, and that is a broad change. State law is real clear on that. That's ouster, or unless there's a separate statute that allows an official to be removed by, like the judges that I spoke about. But anyway, we'll take a look at that.
Subsection A did have a subsection 2 that was removed per the October 4 minutes. That was yeah, it just says strike this section, so that was done. Draw your attention to that.
Okay,
You
hang
wanna
on just a
re-
second.
wanna review?
Going back to A1,
Mm-hmm.
you read on down here, start any resident of any such district desiring to stand for election to the legislative body and qualify to do so pursuant to the requirements of this chapter shall qualify in accordance with applicable law for one specific seat of such legislative body. That goes back to the seat A, seat B.
Okay.
The way we do it here is the top 2 vote getters in the general election are your 2 county commissioners. They're running, everybody in that, all the candidates are running for one of 2 seats. Okay, so.
Got it.
We might need to address that. Everybody understand what I'm saying there?
Yes.
I'd seen where it was crossed out, but
I think that's us talking about that seat A,
Sure.
seat B. Each qualified voter in any legislative district may vote for one candidate for legislative body seat. Now, see, that needs to go
For
two,
each
Mhm.
seat.
because each qualified voter gets to vote for two,
Yeah, there's two seats.
right, in the general.
Yeah.
And even in the primary, you get to vote for two. But when it comes down to the general, you get to vote for two. You could vote for a Democrat, you could vote for a Republican if they're gonna be partisan,
Or even independent.
or an independent. It doesn't matter, so that needs to be taken out too. For one candidate, each legislative body's seat. You with me there, Gavin?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
I didn't see any comments or revisions on B through, the rest of 2.03.
Yeah, B is standard, that's your reapportionment provision,
Mhm.
like we do every 10 years now. C is your qualifications. Those are pretty standard.
On page 10, I had a question about this one. I
But
think,
I have a question about C.
Okay.
How about the circumstance, well, I think it talks about the 1 year thing is waived if there's just been a change of districts.
Right.
Okay. Oh God, that's but how about if we had such, like we had on this body, where we had a member move from one district to another,
Now, that's different,
okay?
I believe,
That
This
person
is
wouldn't
for
meet the,
you.
wouldn't meet the 1 year
yeah.
requirement in the new district.
Now, if you reapportion and change districts,
Yeah.
okay, and somebody is left out, say you're close to the line, you move that line, then you get this 1 year exception.
mhm.
But if you voluntarily move out of your district, then, by operation of law, you're disqualified immediately.
Yeah, from the position you're in.
Right.
But how about when you move to another district in the same county?
No, you have to remain a resident of that district.
Wait, okay, I know. Okay, but just like we did here, we had a member move from one district to another district,
Right.
and then was selected by commission to fill that new spot because that person had left.
But I met the requirements.
Yeah, he met the requirements of being in that
We
district.
had a 2-year delay in meetings, so I met the requirements.
Well, I'm just saying, wonder if in that section, if a person has already been in office, and then there's a change of district, and they have not actually moved, or even, well, if they moved from district to district, even, I guess, or they had moved, but they stayed in the same county, that they would still be eligible. If you went from District 6 to District 5, and the guy in District 5 resigned, that you're still in the same county, you've been on commission, or you've been on
So
something.
you'd say, you're thinking that it should be proper to waive that 1 year residency requirement in the district?
For someone that's been an official in the county and has moved to another district, it's the fact that they
Right.
remained
Now,
a
this would only
resident of the
apply
county.
to county commissioners,
Yeah.
because the general law is for an elected official across the county is just a resident of the county.
Yeah,
So, that's a good point, Steve. What you're saying is, do you need to remain, if you're an elected county commissioner in a particular district, do you need to remain in that district throughout your term of office?
oh, yeah,
Is
yeah,
that-
absolutely, I agree with that.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that if you actually moved and didn't have any choice, okay, but stayed in the county, and then there was an opening in that district, or, I mean, I'm just saying, I just hate to say.
Would the 1 year be waived then?
Yeah, yeah.
Not under
If they remain a citizen of the
Evolve.
same county.
Yeah, I think.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, what this, yeah, I thought.
You got a qualified, experienced person that would be eligible to be selected for that.
But he doesn't meet the 1
But they
year
don't meet the
residency
1 year residency, even though they've
in
lived
that
here
district.
in this county for 50 years.
Well, that may be,
I mean, that's an unusual circumstance, but, you know.
yeah, but I see your point.
Yeah. I reckon that what they're looking at, they want the people in your district to know who you are.
Yeah, the problem though, and
That's right.
this kind of circumvents the whole issue is that once you leave that district by operation of law, you're
Oh,
out.
yeah, you're right, of that district.
Right, and I think the way it's written, you would have to be a resident, if you wanted to be another county commission, not run for a countywide office, you'd have to
Wait
be-
a year.
you'd have to wait a year, or to the next general election, or that if, provided it's more than a year.
Should be.
Or how about being the person to fill a vacant seat in the place where you moved to?
Now, that's a very good question, because the way that works now is by county commission appointment for the unexpired term.
But would you be ineligible if you didn't meet the 1-year requirement?
Yes, the way it's written now.
I just don't,
Yeah,
I hate to see an obstacle to something that would be an advantage to the county.
Yeah,
I don't plan on moving from my house until they take me out in a box. So I'm not trying to plan something for me.
no,
Anyhow, that's just something that occurred to me as I was reading through this thing.
yeah,
You want me to try to-
maybe, I think state law just requires you to be a resident of the district. It
Mhm.
doesn't require that 1 year.
That's right.
Period.
The state
So-
law only requires you to be a resident and a
let's all-
registered voter of the district.
Exactly. Let's think about this. I'm gonna put a note, and the way we would cure this whole provision is to take out that 1 year. Because I can see how this would happen. Somebody, resigns county commission, the normal process is the county commission puts out, look, we got an opening
Notice.
here, somebody goes for appointment, this is for the unexpired term, and county commission appoints. Well, county commission would be locked into only considering people that had lived in that district for 1 year.
Yeah.
They couldn't have the opportunity to select anybody from that district.
And that exceeds state.
That exceeds state law. All right, that's one we wanna come back to.
I mean, you
Everybody
never,
following that whole issue?
I mean, you never say never, but in probably 40, 50 years, I don't think
It's gonna happen.
it's ever, never happened.
How many times would you think that we would have a tie election in this county on a countywide office? I would say never. Well, it's happened.
That's right.
And we've had numerous county commissioner elections that have a tie vote, 1 vote, several that have been decided by 10 votes, inside 10 votes.
Yeah.
These are tight races, but it happens. I was kinda shocked when that happened on the juvenile court. I said, no way, it can't happen. You can't have over 8,700 votes cast. It's an exact tie, but it happened. And they recounted that 4 or 5 times just to make sure, but things do happen, and Chuck knows that. We've been around a long time, and you gotta actually plan for these things, and you gotta read through them and think, how's this gonna affect a certain set of fact pattern, when it's applied, but, Steve's a deep thinker, and that's good. All right, everybody ready to move on? Thank you,
Move on.
Ken. Thanks for the comments, gentlemen, ladies.
My next question
I'm not
is,
trying to pigeonhole you.
2.04. I took out the 20 and 40% percentages. However, I still left them blank. I believe I got the 20 and 40% from the working copy. I don't know if that's the current system, but the notes say that it needs to be taken out and the current system
Right.
maintained. I don't. What if
The
what
current
is
system is county commission sets it, it's
Okay.
nominal.
okay?
It's, what is it, guys, $8.75 or something, it's a month, it's honestly,
Well, it's an annual amount, and then it's set up
Mm-hmm.
by whatever kind of thing, by resolution or whatever.
right, it's a resolution by the
That
county commission.
when the state employees get a raise,
Mhm.
the following year, the commission gets the same percentage raise, and then we don't ever have to mess with it at all.
Matter of fact,
Right.
every time the state gets a raise, we
Yeah.
get the same raise.
Yeah, but we get it the
That
following
was you
year.
that helped get that.
No, we get the same year. The resolution we passed, every time the state issues the
You may
raise.
be thinking about the elected officials, it takes 1 year for it to come around for the elected officials to get that raise.
Oh, we're elected
in the
officials.
state, but now, what we did is by motion and resolution of the county commission, right?
Uh-huh.
It's not by state statute.
Yeah.
And the way it's written in there is exactly like Chuck explained, as soon as the state employees get that raise, then whatever that percentage it goes up, of course, we're still talking about a nominal amount, because it's a nominal amount to begin with.
Yeah.
You
2%
may
of
get
nothing is nothing.
A $7 raise.
It must be that other counties do it different, because I heard it discussed very differently with the Tennessee County Commission Association discussions when they talk.
Well, there's a bill, and I know you're aware of it right now, that says that if, members that take county insurance, okay,
Yeah,
that's declared compensation, so if you don't take county insurance, you're entitled to equal pay, and the ones that don't take county insurance, your salary will go up to the level of what it is, what the other
yeah,
commissioners
to make
get
up
for
for
the
not
salary
taking the insurance.
and the insurance. So if that passes, there's several county commissioners that stand to get a big raise on here.
Oh, when you start at a real small number, it doesn't take a
It
very
doesn't
big
take a
raise.
lot, that's my point, but anyway, this would be a big change if that ever passes.
Well, I've always seen that the fact that I have military coverage, that I've saved the county money every year because I don't use
Well,
their.
you'd be one that would get a raise, but I don't know if that's gonna pass. At first, CTAS felt like it would, but now I'm not sure where it's at.
I've heard a lot of, well, we don't know about that discussion.
Right. But I understand, you know, it's very unequal. We've had complaints about this in the past. You're getting, county commissioners that take the insurance
Yeah.
benefit are getting a lot more compensation than ones that aren't. But,
Yeah, our
that's
thing
what-
has nothing to do with the state. Every time they give the mayor, trustee, or anybody a raise, we automatically get the
yes, sir.
same amount,
Mhm.
Well, I've drafted
Same
there,
percentage.
percentage.
Yes.
Yeah,
I-
same percent.
I've drafted there
Which makes it a
sample
lot smaller.
language that would allow the commission to set their own. It would stay the same.
Which
for the
one is
date.
it, Doug?
It's the big red.
Yeah, okay. Another option would be to, I need to turn
It's
it.
in
Okay.
quotes.
Another option would be to leave it open-ended by specifying the salary that shall continue to be what is at the time the charter is passed, but that the county commission set their own salary within the limits of general law. For example, the salary members of the first legislative body elected under this charter shall be that provided on the same day, effective date, legislative body may set their own salary, not be raised during the term of office, and shall not be increased or decreased for the next term of office. That's more like the judge's salary.
If I can get a copy of the resolution, I can just make it
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah,
like,
Yeah,
like
let's
that.
do that.
Just leave it like it is. We don't,
Yeah, that's what we're
Okay.
doing, that's what he's gonna do, the resolution that we passed on. I've always heard, citizens, when they get this issue, they say, oh, county commission gets to set their own salary. Well, the effect of that is actually reversed. The
Yeah.
county commission is reluctant to give
Oh, that's-
themselves a raise.
That's right.
And that's why it's so low to this day. County commission rarely says, we wanna go up on our salary. In fact, it's only happened one time in 21 years, other than this periodic raise that Chuck's talking about. So what we're gonna do to fix that is just embody the resolution that was passed by county commission, was it, Chuck, 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, just, and put
Yeah.
that wording right in there.
I'll get that to you.
Yeah, well, it wasn't this last commission, it was the commission before that, because we couldn't give ourselves a raise, so the commission that was leaving passed it, so the next commission could get
Yes,
it when it came in.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got that, I'll get it to you. All right,
I had no other on 206, 207, 208. 209, there was I think a comment that in one of the minutes, no change other than including ordinances.
yeah, I think one's fine. Cause you're talking about legislative authority,
Mhm.
1, 2. Subsection, I'm looking at 209A, 1 and 2. 1's definitely okay. 2 is, must have a caption heading, date of adoption, that's fine.
Okay.
In fact, the Constitution of the State of Tennessee, says it must have a caption line for all laws.
Mhm.
Heck, that was on the bar exam, I don't know if you know that. About 20 years ago, there was a question, and nobody studying for the bar knew this. I mean, it's nothing you study in law school.
Mhm.
But, always carry that on to legislative resolutions that we do. You notice I always have a caption line up there telling you exactly, it's kind of an abstract of what that resolution does, just to satisfy that constitutional mandate. So is the same with what we do right now.
Okay,
Okay, ready to move on?
yep.
I had nothing further on, well, I'd like to talk about B, ordinances,
Okay.
here real quick, B2 specifically. The statute says 3 readings, unless, otherwise provided by charter, so I didn't know if Anderson County Commission wanted to make it, pass ordinances.
We talked about this early on, what it would take, was actually October of 2020. I brought this up to you and you decided 2 readings.
Right.
That's similar to what municipalities do. If you want 3, we can put it in there. You still have the option to do the emergency ordinance.
Correct.
Right, but legislative ordinance, what he's talking about is how many times you want it to be read before the county commission can actually pass it. The way it is now, the way you told me earlier, a year and a half ago, was 2 times.
Two.
So now it's
That's what we
once.
voted on.
Oh, now it's just once.
So this means anything we wanna pass that isn't an emergency will take it'll take a month to do it
No,
because
not
the next
anything.
meeting, the next,
No,
Not
can
anything.
you have 2 readings in the same
Of
meeting?
an ordinance,
Of an ordinance.
ordinance,
not a resolution.
not a resolution. And remember, that earlier provision said
Okay, understand.
county commission can act by resolution, ordinance, or emergency
Yeah, okay.
ordinance. So if you pass an ordinance.
You're right.
then
I
you've
missed
got-
the word ordinance.
You've got
Okay.
two readings. That's what we want.
Okay, that's how it
Each
is.
ordinance, yeah.
Yep.
And I've also included the, per the minutes, I think, the 30th day, effective upon the 30th day. So that was a change there. I didn't see any other, comments or suggestions on 209.
Because there's still an emergency ordinance.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
If there was something
If
really
something that
urgent,
was pressing-
we could declare an emergency
You know,
ordinance.
the boiler goes out in the courthouse, you know, whatever, the case is, emergency purchase, then we can do an emergency ordinance. And, that's basically, I guess, the same standing as a resolution, although ordinance would have a punitive nature to it. But is there anything else different here than what that set of statutes calls for on ordinances?
No, other than the 3, but that's been corrected now. The statute is kind of weird. It says read on 3 different days, but then there's an exception there too, and it says you can provide for it in 2. Our concern was if it says 3 in the charter, and then you later on pass an ordinance that it can be done by 2, it's still in the charter. So we wanted to go ahead and include it in the charter.
I
Anything
think
else?
right.
That's good.
Everybody following Gavin, what he's saying there, I agree with him on that.
That's anything else in 209 has not been changed, and I didn't see any comment or markings to indicate that.
And I like the fact that it gives us a little bit of breathing room by saying that it can, that the 2 readings have to be a week apart.
Oh, yeah,
You know, but,
that,
and so you could have you could do something and if it didn't quite qualify as an emergency, you could have a special call meeting, right?
yeah, the way it's happened before in Tennessee and other states, they adjourn one meeting and call for another meeting right after it.
Well, this
So-
says it has to be a week apart.
Well, that's the fix.
Yeah, okay.
The way it was before, and
Yeah.
years ago, when, ordinance could be adopted, like a municipality, have a provision for an ordinance. Generally, only municipalities and charter, counties can have ordinances. What they would do is, for 2 readings, they would adjourn one meeting, now they're all publicly noticed, and then start a new meeting and read it again. Well, we've got the ability to have an emergency ordinance to take care of that.
That's something that was earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
Great, okay, I understand.
210, there was a note that section would be revisited. I'd also like to comment on 1. I wanted to see what that revisit was talking about there before I deleted A1. I think that one has to go based on the mayor's ability to veto the indebtedness.
Yeah, the mayor, and I like this, the state law says all resolutions must go to the mayor. And so this is saying all ordinances and emergency ordinances and resolutions must be submitted to the mayor. I like that, because that's consistent with state law for approval or veto, provided however, this requirement shall not apply to resolution authorizing the borrowing, issuing of bond notes, and other evidence of indebtedness in all matters. Now that, I believe the mayor should have the ability to veto that. Because don't we have it earlier in here that the mayor could veto budgets? I know you can by state law. The mayor can always veto a budget, even though some would argue that's administrative, but, and she only has the power, I keep saying she because of Terry, but, I think the mayor should have the ability to veto that budget. That's the checks and balances on your budget. And so, the authorizing borrowing of money, I think, is under the same rationale. That I think the mayor should have the ability to veto indebtedness. That's my thoughts on it. When county commission agrees to take out a bond, general obligation bond, something like along those lines, that's a big step. And there needs to be a check system on that. And the check system is just like the budget, is what I'm trying to compare it to. The mayor needs to have that ability to veto that indebtedness. Now, in reality, how that works is, here in Anderson County, the mayor is involved in the negotiation process of that bond through the finance committee. They come to terms, they're agreeable on it, so we don't have a problem. But I don't want to take that power away from the mayor, because I believe that's important. County commission shouldn't have the sole power to issue bonds. Now, you may feel different.
Override?
Oh, you can always override, yes, sir.
Yeah, but
Not
now anyway,
two-thirds,
if we had something we were doing that was urgent in nature, and we needed to get something because we got something coming up this week, the mayor can wait 10 days to decide to veto it, right?
I tell you, that's hard times.
Which
If
means
we have a
basically-
problem,
I have
we
another
gotta have a
question.
loan within 10 days. That's, I don't think any of us wanna be here at that point.
Now, I don't know if we ever, you know, when I was on commission before, this was a problem,
Yes, sir.
but there was a time of the year where, I guess it was in the fall, you hadn't got to where the taxes were coming in, and you had to borrow
It was
money.
lean. Yeah, those
The
were those
lean.
temporary notes we had.
Yes. And,
But we passed many of those.
I never,
Tax anticipation note.
yeah,
Yeah, that happens. Fortunately, due to the finance committee and county commission, we're a much more solvent county than
that's
we were
great.
12 years ago.
But we don't know when we might get back into
We
that.
don't. And,
Well, that's why
And-
that fund balance is so important.
And that's true, but, that's something to consider on this too, because one person can hold it up. Can keep a lot of people from getting a payday.
And you're thinking the scenario that Steve talked about, the mayor doing basically holding it for 10 days or vetoing it and making county commission come back in session to override that veto? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, because that takes us 5 days to come back into session because of public notice, right? Or is it
Well, what if
gonna
we,
be less if it's?
now it says resolution, what if we did this by emergency ordinance, Gavin? What if we were up against well, it says in first line that emergency ordinances must still be submitted to the mayor. You know, I keep thinking to myself, I don't think a mayor would ever do that to this, to a county if we were in that bad a shape, because that means somebody's missing a paycheck. A lot of people may be missing a paycheck at that point.
I agree
But
with you.
as we talked about earlier, you gotta think these things out, and that's a very good point.
You never say never.
Never say never. So, let's work through it. As it stands, the mayor has 10 days under general law to sign that resolution. Okay? She doesn't have to sign it. It can become effective after 10 days. It's not That's similar to, people call it a pocket veto, that's not what it is. Pocket veto is a federal law. She can hold that for 10 days. I'm sorry, Terry, if you're listening. I keep saying she for mayor, but the mayor can hold that for 10 days, not tell the county commission what their intent is, and just not sign it, but it becomes effective. That means you've got at least a 10-day period in there before a bond could be issued. We're talking about indebtedness. The other problem is if she waits to the 10th day and vetoes.
Yep.
Well, then you've got to override that veto, and you're gonna have to go through public notice of a new meeting. So you've got a minimum of about 20 days in there. Wow, those would be some tough times.
Well, let's
We
just,
got to that.
I don't mind leaving it like it is, because I think it'd be,
The current state, with the way it's written here.
yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just, in essence, playing like Steve, playing the devil's advocate there, but I really don't think we'd have anybody that do that.
Well, the way this reads, VL, is any resolution authorizing the borrowing of money and the issuance of bonds and notes would not carry the power for the mayor to veto. That's the way it reads. Am I right, Gavin?
Correct.
So,
Shall not apply to.
So it wouldn't apply to this, really.
right. And as I said, you're losing that checks and balances if you allow county commission the sole unilateral power to issue a note.
Right.
So that's the dilemma we're in.
Yeah, leave it. We gotta have the checks and balances.
I think so too.
Well, the way I
my
understand it, the commission has the authority to do this, and the mayor can't veto it.
You're right.
Yeah, okay.
The mayor couldn't veto it,
Yeah.
but I think the biggest overall lingering issue is you always want to have checks and balances in a government over public funds.
Yeah,
You
that's
don't
why we have
want-
16 commissioners.
Exactly, but you don't want one body of the three branches of government having that sole ability to do that. We're talking about large sums of money. I mean, we've issued notes here for 15 million up at times and below. But the way it's set, it reads now is county commission would have that unilateral authority without a mayor veto over it, indebtedness. And we allow mayor veto as it stands now over indebtedness.
The purpose for my highlighting it and not just going ahead and deleting the text was because in one of the minutes, there was a note that this section will be revisited. So I didn't know if
Because I
exactly.
want to revisit right now.
Sure. So I wasn't trying to get you away from the current
No,
system.
no. I can see where we're all hung up on it. Tim, you got any thoughts? I mean, I know how it works in actuality because the finance committee talks about these bonds. They negotiate it. We've got a financial advisor. Scott comes in. He talks about the details of the bond, and 9 members come together on the finance committee and say, yeah, we're going to recommend this to county commission as a general obligation bond, and it works out good. And that's the way it would continue to work out under the 81 Act because the mayor is involved in that process, I believe. But I'm struggling, as you can tell.
Don't most of the power though sit with the finance committee, because if it don't come out of finance committee with a recommendation to county commission, it ain't gonna happen.
It ain't gonna happen.
No.
There's your checks and balances.
But you could have a situation, now our mayor gets along very well on finance committee. They work together. You could have a mayor that says absolutely no, and is a lone vote or one of a minority that votes against it. It comes out of the finance committee with a recommendation for county commission to approve it, and the mayor still at that point, the way this is written, wouldn't have that ability to veto that measure. It works out better under the 81 Act because everybody's involved, but it may not always be the case here.
Well, considering the two things, I'd rather leave it like as it's written.
Okay,
Another relatively minor administrative thing
No,
related
no,
to this
I wanna
very
hear it.
thing,
I wanna
okay,
hear it.
is occasionally I've seen things that the mayor let go into effect without signature. And when the official copy goes out, her signature line is just blank.
right.
It seems to me we need to have something in a procedure that something is put there, passed without signature, or something there, instead of just, you look at this official document that authorizes something, you know, important, and then one of the signatures is for the mayor,
looks
it's just
invalid.
blank. It looks invalid. Isn't there some kind of standard for when something
No,
passed per,
no, I've had people talk to me about this, can we take the mayor's signature off of it and only have the county commission chair and the,
I don't have any problem having a
Yeah.
blank there, but it could just be filled in with,
that's a minor administrative thing that we
Yeah.
can do a resolution or
Yeah.
even a motion from the county
Yeah.
commission. Just say,
just for clarity.
for clarity, just say, I hate to use strong words like refuse to sign, pass without
Pass
mayor's
without signature.
signature.
Well, they do this at all levels of government, state level, federal
Yes, sir.
level, so I don't have any
At the
problem.
federal level, though, you have the pocket veto, where they just hold it and it vetoes.
Right.
Now, here you hold it and it passes.
Passes, right.
Okay,
I think when the governor lets them, they still put something in that blank, they just don't leave it
Okay.
blank.
the governor doesn't sign it,
Yeah, when he lets something just go into effect without signature.
He doesn't sign it.
Yeah, after 10 days, if he doesn't veto it, it goes into effect, just like the mayor.
does it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I got a question mark here. We'll think of, the option that just comes to my head is we shorten on indebtedness, shorten that mayor period of veto, to something like 3 days or something instead of the normal 10, to keep,
Oh, yeah, that would allow it, the effect would
right.
reduce the
The
consequences.
if it's truly an emergency that we've got to make payroll, worst case scenario, hard times, then county commission, when they passed it, okay, they could set a follow-up special call meeting that's 10 days out. And if the mayor does veto, they're ready to take it up again for a possible override. That's one way around it, but you gotta think, okay, well, you still have 10 days and we're suffering. Well, folks, the way it works, by the time you, approve it, they get the bonds ready, they go out to market, they're sold, you're looking at close to 30 days anyway, and sometimes longer. So it's not, you pass it one night and you get a check tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
That's not gonna
That
happen.
happened in 2011.
No, but if it's
Yes, sir.
delayed 10 days, that could be.
That could be a problem. So maybe, let me think about it, but I got a question mark here, and
Okay.
I'm gonna put an option of maybe shortening, for indebtedness only, shortening that veto power there. Because you know, again, I don't have a vote on this, but I think, I feel pretty strong that you need a checks and balance system.
Or could it even say something like indebtedness of an urgent nature or
Yeah.
something, yeah.
Well, you could put it, in the same line with emergency, it's 3 days.
Good point. Okay, go ahead, Gavin.
I'd say Article 3 is the article that needs the most work still, but there have been some changes made, some things removed. Just want to make sure that is drafted so as not to conflict with the 81 Act. So 301, 302 have not been changed. 303, I think G, and this is back to the veto power on page 16.
Hang on just a
Well,
second.
before we get to G, B, the mayor don't present the budget, the finance director does.
Yeah. Oversight of the finance committee.
Right, that's the way, under the 57 Act, it was, and under the general state statutes the
Mhm.
mayor presents. But, is it truly, I know Robbie presents it, the budget committee passes it, correct?
Uh-huh.
And they give it to Robbie to bring to county commission, is that,
After it goes to public hearing, then it comes to,
Right.
county commission for final approval.
Yeah.
okay,
Like we got that public hearing, all
okay.
So we can change that to finance director. Like I said, this is this section, the article that needs the most,
Yeah, that's part
puffed
of
up
the
with
81 Act.
the 81 Act, yeah. I, just going over these, there weren't any large markings or anything otherwise indicating,
Well-
remove this section or.
So B really has to be moved out of mayor's duties.
Right, that's right.
So, it would have to go to the, here's another one of these issues, that if we ever change from the 81 Act, we'd have to go back and put these under, if it's 57, the mayor,
Yeah.
some of the general default statutes, it'd be the mayor. But right, as it stands right now, the budget committee prepares that budget, and, it's presented then to county commission. Yeah, that's gonna have to be moved either way, to somewhere in the budget process, Gavin, and
Yeah.
that would need to reflect the 81 Act process. If we ever change it, and that's why I think it's very important that, we have the ability, a new county commission comes in, has the ability to change that budgeting law without actually amending the charter.
Right, yeah, so
Have that enabling authority already set up in the
by
charter
ordinance,
that,
right.
It could force a change in the charter, but
yeah, but I don't want them to think they've got to amend the charter just to change to
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
alternate budget.
we all agree with that.
Okay, good. All right.
Now, what I didn't like is it says that the mayor shall be the chief physical officer of the county, because isn't that really the finance director under the supervision of the finance committee?
Yes.
Anyhow, so this is, that 302 thing, I think that's if you're just talking about that it has to be moved around because.
Right, I think it's written and drafted as a
Yeah, he's got that
feud
taken
through
care of.
general law.
Yeah, you're talking about 302?
No, yeah, 302.
Yeah, that amendment he's already changed that, the chief financial officer.
The one that you just handed me
Well,
says
the-
that the
it
mayor
says-
is the chief financial officer of the county.
Responsible for the exercising of all executive and administrative functions, of the county government, and shall be chief fiscal officer. But, like I said, that has to be reworked within the,
Yes.
are we looking at a different copy, or?
No, I got it.
Okay.
I see where he's at. He's on, the first sentence of 302, towards the end.
Yeah. Yeah, the last sentence I don't have any problem with.
Right. Yeah, that's gonna have to be reflected
Right.
in, you're probably gonna have to have a standalone budget system, section.
Mm-hmm, okay.
Okay?
And I'm still not sure what branch the finance director is in. Do we actually have a finance branch? Actually?
That's the blended 81 Act. I mean,
Yeah.
that's normally an administrative function of the
Yeah.
executive branch. It's certainly not legislative. But the way it stands now, that finance committee, supervises that finance director.
Yep.
They hire and fire that person. Even though
With,
that.
with concurrence of commission, I think.
Yes, but, you know, we're running into all these conflicts with the 81 Act, and I was kind of torn when we went from the 57 to the 81 Act. But I can tell you right now, and I think to the surprise of many, it works very well here.
Yes.
It forces more of a collaborative effort, certainly through the budget committee and the finance committee. And I love the part that the mayor's a part of that. The mayor understands
Oh,
this
yeah, yeah.
process. They're not isolated as
The
they
mayor
were
has an
before.
oversight responsibility
Right.
as a member
But-
of the finance committee.
Exactly. it's, Tim, you think it works well, don't you? I mean, you're on the finance committee. Chuck, you still on it? You guys are old timers here. Is it working well? To me, it looks like it does.
Well, I mean, with between the finance committee and the way it's presented in the budget committee, I mean, you got 8 commissioners already on the
We got 3
budget committee.
levels.
Our budget seems to go better.
It does.
It's
There's no surprises.
really no
That's great for the
surprises.
departments.
If you get through budget, I mean, you almost they got 9 votes almost.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, if you get it through budget committee, you're well under your way to getting it passed, and it's got 3 levels of
What I like
vetting.
to say to these guys, the budget committee, is I really appreciate the fact that by the time it goes through your guys, man, it is hard to find anything wrong with it.
It is.
Because the budget committee really does a hell of a job, along with some help from the people in our finance director and budget people. But by the time it comes to full commission, man, all the issues it's rare that there's something still left hanging.
It's
Well, I
rarely
find,
contentious at all. It seems extremely smooth to me as a department head. I'm not on either committee, but it works very well. There's no political fighting over it. There's no surprises. It seems like everybody, the collaborative effort puts everybody on board with the decision, and it's been vetted at different levels, and it works pretty well.
Well, the good thing about it is the mayor and the finance director are here daily,
Yeah.
and they have the opportunity to discuss and research, and then present to finance and budget, is what their findings are.
Yeah.
That's one of the good
Yeah.
things about it.
You know, a side note on this is, it's got me to thinking lately, we're gonna have at least 6 new commissioners.
Yes.
Possibly,
Minimum.
depending on how the contested elections go, it could be 8 or 10
Yes.
new commissioners. And then seeing how we have a complex system, I think, I mean, it works well, but for someone coming in fresh, new, it's complicated. I know,
Yeah.
It's been a learning process for me to see how all these parts
Absolutely,
work
Bob, and that's a
together.
very good point.
Yeah.
It appears complicated on the surface, but when you put it all together, it works really smooth. From what I see, our budget process has been smooth the last several years. It really has. What I try to do when new commissioners come on board, before they're sworn in, I invite them all over to my office for an orientation day on a Saturday. And we go through the budgeting law, ethics. We go through a lot of different county operational issues. Kim comes over to HR and says, here's your email address, here's your county ID, you want insurance, here are the benefits, and we knock all that out beforehand, and we answer a lot of those questions that people have that are coming in new. Well, I thought it worked like this, and we explain to them how it does work, but that seems to help for new county commissioners. But the biggest orientation is sitting with your peers at meetings. We've always had a great blend of senior commissioners and then younger ones coming on. And those senior commissioners, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but the seating arrangement really works out great. You usually have a senior commissioner sitting next to somebody that's only in their first term, and it really helps coach them through it. And they get their feet wet in 4 or 5 meetings, and the next thing they know, they got a really good understanding, because especially the ones that will ask questions of their peers that are sitting on the county legislative body. And that's what they should do. They should delve into that resource and look at people that have been here, like all of you, been here for years, say, hey, what do you think about this? And that works out great when you have that kind of interaction and people bouncing things off the senior members. It works great. But
I didn't mean to sidetrack.
no, I think
There's actually
it's a
required
very good
training
point.
for new people.
But, it's kind of sad when you lose people like Jerry Creasy,
State law.
that's been here for so long, and it hurts. There's no doubt, because you lose that leadership. And Chuck, Chuck has done everything from head
Yeah.
budget to be chairman of county commission. There'll be a void when Chuck leaves, because because that'll be a brand new commissioner down there.
And Jerry Creasy, I can remember a number of times, Jerry Creasy says, you know what? We did the same thing back in October, I think of this year. You better take a look at the minutes of that meeting. By God, we go back.
He'll be right there on
And
it.
there's where we had talked about the same thing and brought up what the issues were. Whereas
Mary Murphy
nobody at the meeting had.
Mary Murphy was just like that. When we lost
Yeah.
Mary Murphy, that was a great resource to me.
We got Annette now.
Yeah, but Annette's great, but she's been working in other departments now for 26 years, not just county commission.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah.
my funny story on this was Albert Slusher, who was here for years. He sat right here. And one of my first meetings in county commission, something came up. Well, what it was a Claxon sewer line. People in Gaston Town were upset, like they were for years down there with the sewer overflowing. There's no sewer. The septic tanks were overflowing. The land wouldn't perk, and it was an ongoing issue. And they came up, and they were really nice. They weren't mad about it. They said, look, we need some help here. And we worked on it, and we finally got it fixed through grants, and Chuck was on board, and Tracy then when we got that fixed. But Albert Slusher made the comment. He just shook his head, and he said, we built that bridge for you back in '42, and you're already back up here? I said, gosh, man, this is like 2000. You want something already? He's talking about that Bull Run Bridge on 25W. But he was a character, no doubt. I'm sorry. All right,
And did we, on page 15, did we get this part B where that's gonna get fixed? Because this has the mayor
Yeah.
presenting the budget.
Yeah, what I told Gavin is that section needs to be amended and put under his budget section. Okay, ready?
Yep. G, there was a comment on the January 3rd minutes that the mayor was to continue to have veto power and provide an explanation in writing. I think that's what G does. There was a note in the minutes, so I wanted to make sure that section was okay.
Okay, what he's saying here is when the mayor vetoes, there's an explanation in writing. Our mayor now does that. She
Yeah.
always puts out
A
a letter. It's not just an email. She'll send it via email, but it'll be a letter, and she'll say, this is why I vetoed it, and I think that's well respected here. And honestly, the way that works out, and I know of 3 particular situations, she's pointed out very good points. And instead of us coming back and overriding that veto, I drafted a new resolution to take care of her concerns that I thought were valid, present them to county commission. We didn't do an override, we just adopted the new resolution with her on board. And that works out great. When the mayor specifies what the problem is with that,
Right.
while they vetoed it, that helps us draft a new resolution that
Got it.
takes care of their
Yep.
concerns. That works out great. But anyway, yes, that's fine.
In H, there was also a comment that this was state law. I didn't know if that was something you wanted stricken or kept in there.
Section H on page 16.
Yes, sir.
What part on 16 would have been?
Section H.
H?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the only thing there is, you need a comma, except where provided by state law.
In the second sentence or the third or generally?
That normally is the case, but let's, off the top of my head, you've got the HR director that's created by resolution, and that person is confirmed or is hired by the HR committee and then confirmed by county commission. My job is legal services, 2/3 vote, and county commission 2/3 confirmation vote. And so there's the vast majority of the time that general law applies here, but we need something to say except we're provided by Tennessee state law and
Or private act?
private. Well, you've got HR, which is a standalone department created by resolution. So
Well, in your
that
case, it's
created by, except for, difference by state law or something. But, HR is different. I guess that we'd have to say, except those situations, where, state law or county commission resolution provides otherwise. Something along those lines. Is there anywhere else, board or commission that's selected? I think the mayor brings all those to county commission. She even brings some that she doesn't have to, and then county commission confirms. That works out well. I'm trying to think of one that's not like that. The ethics committee has the mayor and a mayor's appointment, but the other members are set by, basically by virtue of their official position, or somebody that's there by virtue of their official position, say the register of deeds, could ask somebody else to set for them on that committee, and the mayor wouldn't have, wouldn't select that person. So there is some situations that may differ from that, but the general law is the mayor appoints subject to county commission confirmation.
Can I clarify?
Yes, sir.
The very beginning, except as otherwise provided by,
Yes, perfect.
so that's
But
okay.
you need to add.
Okay. Add.
But the resolution part, what I was
Got
trying,
it,
I'm
got
trying to find something that we do that's different than that by resolution.
Okay, perfect.
The only thing is, HR. That HR department, and I've said this before, I've said this all along, it needs to be created by private act. It honestly does. We use the enabling authority of the County Personnel Policy Act that gives county commission the power to set personnel policies. And the way that was first adopted was the movement, in Anderson County was we had several different elected officials that had their own personnel policy. So when I got a personnel policy question, the first analysis I had to make and decision was which personnel policy control. Was it the county general, or did the elected official have their own personnel policy? That sometimes meant the situation, the analysis turned out differently. Well, the movement was to get everybody on board to adopt a comprehensive county-wide personnel policy. That's how HR got started. And the thought was get everybody together, have them a seat, all your elected officials, have them a seat on the HR committee, and let them come to agreement on a standardized, comprehensive personnel policy. They did it. And county commission put that in place, and the way they put it in place was by forming this HR committee and hiring an HR director. And that's the enabling authority that we've always used to create the HR department, is that county commission ability to adopt those policies. At that time, the elected officials all signed a letter saying that, hey, we're gonna follow the comprehensive personnel countywide policy. We've all had a say-so in the input, we agree with it, and county commission had no problem. Now, from time to time, we have an elected official that it's rare, that doesn't agree with a particular provision. So I have to come back and say, you have the ability, and they do by state law, elected officials, certain ones, they're listed in the County Personnel Policy, Personnel Management Act, have the ability to adopt their own. So I tell them, I can't tell them they don't have that policy because it's not, our HR department is not set up by private act or state law, it's set up by resolution. So we've had at least one or two that have made personnel amendments to their own department. That's rare, but it has happened. And we had, of course, one of the bigger issues was nepotism years ago. And we've about taken care of that through grandfather and just a few people. There's not hardly anybody left. But years ago, and I know VL remembers these days, you go into some of these elected officials' offices and they were surrounded by family members. And we had one case, and many of y'all probably remember that came back to bite us pretty bad on that, but, that's no more, and, that's the way it should work. Of course, we have people that work for the county, they're kids and brothers and sisters of other people, but the whole issue is you gotta be a direct subordinate of that person. But anyway, that's how that occurred, but what I'm, again, I go off on a tangent, but I was trying to think of something we created by resolution, so you need to stick that resolution in
Sure.
there if there's an alternative, means set up, and the alternative means, the two that I can think of is the ethics committee and the HR committee that were both set up by resolution and not private act or general law in this state. Okay, go ahead.
Skipping ahead on page 17, previous subsection K and L were deleted per the, I think, the January or the February minutes.
Okay, negotiate.
I think the January.
So you scratched J,
Correct.
The-
It was, well, the current J, that one was not in the minutes to be scratched.
okay. J, really, again, this is another conflict with 81 law. The mayor has the ability to negotiate and execute loans, bonds, notes, and other evidences of indebtedness of the county in conjunction with the finance committee. But now, we're just talking about negotiation. It has to be passed by the Board of Commissioners, the legislative body. But the way it works in practicality is the mayor is heavily involved in the negotiation of these. She brings the terms, she works with Scott, brings the terms to the finance committee, they work through it, and they recommend it to county commission.
We talked about that and said we need to leave it that way.
Leave what? The way it's written now?
Yeah. I believe that's the way it was passed.
Negotiate next. Okay, well, he's got something in here that kind of changes it by putting provided in the resolution authorizing the same. So what are you saying, that resolution that authorizes the indebtedness has to say the mayor has the ability?
Right, yeah, the resolution giving the authorization for the mayor to do so has to be the same one that allows her to
Oh, okay.
execute, yeah.
That takes care of the whole issue when you read it together, that's my fault. I also like this option you have, the commission also has the option to permit the mayor to direct the investment of the funds. That's not a unilateral decision on the mayor's part, that's the county commission saying, direct these funds here. Everybody follow me on that? Okay, all right, and then K, have the sole power and authority to enter into contracts on behalf of Anderson County, except as otherwise provided in this charter. Contracts and purchases on behalf of the county shall be entered into the mayor's designee. On all contracts, not greater than $50,000.
I'm trying to look for the minutes where it said to
Yeah.
delete K and
the
L,
way-
but not that.
That K, the mayor would have the ability to sign that, but the word "sole" gives me a problem there, because it looks like that, the way it's written, that the mayor could circumvent the whole purchasing process, which is, adds several layers of protection to it, including the bidding,
Mhm.
Be the finance director, wouldn't it?
Well, you really don't want anyone to have the unilateral power, on their own, I don't think. That's why we have a layered system here. It comes up from the department, they should have done a good job reading the contract, the terms should be acceptable to them. It goes to purchasing sends it back to the county law director, the law director conducts a review to approve by form, then it goes back to the purchasing committee, they process it and approve it and send it up to, county commission for approval, is the way it works. Now, there's several layers of protection. This appears to say that the mayor would have the sole power and authority to enter into contracts on behalf of Anderson County, except as otherwise provided in this charter. Maybe except as otherwise provided by the 81 Financial Management Act or state law or something like that.
And is the word "sole" really necessary?
That's the part that I'm hung up on.
Yeah.
And again, it's nothing against our mayor or any mayor. It's just that you want, on any expenditure or budgeting, you want layers of protection there. I think that's sound fiscal management. And the way it's set up now, you have several layers.
Because the word "sole" to me makes it sound like nobody else can.
Right. Contract or purchases on behalf of the county shall be entered into by the mayor or mayor's designee. Of course, the mayor has the ability to sign those.
Yeah.
But under the 81 Act, the 81 Act says the mayor's signature is only required on her departments.
Yeah.
So the purchasing agent or actually the finance director can sign off as long as it's been approved by form. The way it works though is we always, to my knowledge, send them over to the mayor for her signature and just to add that other layer for her to look at it, and she does. So there's several checks on it in the system that we have now, from the initial initiating department that requested. I'm hoping they're doing a good job. Then you've got the bidding process through purchasing, and when that person is selected, that contract is submitted. It goes to my office where we look at it for legal form. It goes back, it comes to the purchasing committee, it's approved there, then it goes up to county commission. Most of the time, when it's a contract, that's the way it happens. Now, when it's a PO or purchase requisition, those are contracts. You can bypass that, and that happens from time to time as long as it's below the bid threshold. So I think the point is there, the sole power, Gavin.
Okay.
And then adding that subject to the requirements of state law or the 1981 Financial Management Act. Contracts and purchase on behalf of the county shall.
Yeah, I got one other thing I've been kind of waiting, Brandon, to bring it up, and
Okay.
it includes in K here. In E, G, I, and K, it says the mayor have, instead of the mayor has.
Mm-hmm.
Have would include, when you say the mayor
Well, he's
have, it's the mayor has, would be grammatically correct, because have is plural.
Yeah, sometimes the way you set
Which-
it up though, if you set it up with a colon,
I think it's
that's proper, and a proper
shall,
colon, yeah,
and then,
prepare.
Because
No,
the.
see what it says,
Because the title is the mayor shall.
shall,
Okay,
Yeah, I
shall
got you.
have, yeah,
see what I'm saying?
yeah, gotcha.
He set it up with a
Shall
colon,
have.
and he's listing those,
Yeah, okay.
those items there,
Yeah,
that's proper.
yeah, okay, you got it,
Um,
I agree.
Let me read through it on all contracts.
That's what you get for having an engineer read this stuff.
But Steve, we couldn't do it without you. That second sentence of K, on all contracts an amount greater than $50,000 or such greater amount as established in advance, the legislative body, the mayor shall obtain the approval of county, that's almost not needed.
okay,
If it goes through the process it goes through now,
Yeah, because the state sets what those limits are, right?
well, we can set our bid
Yeah.
thresholds.
Yeah.
Yeah, they gave us a range,
Yeah.
and they upped years ago, Lord, it was only like $5,000 or something. We were bidding almost everything, but now it's gone up, and we don't have to bid so many items. Okay. Okay, let me see this blue.
I think that was a previous.
Yeah.
keeping in mind that that number could go up in the future, should it say, or as set by state law?
It shouldn't have a number. It should go through the process that we have established now. The mayor, like I was saying, the mayor doesn't have the sole power to enter into any of these. It has to go through this process, that we have in place. And what this is saying, if you, scratch sole, then you come down the second sentence, on all contracts an amount greater than $50,000 or such greater amount is established in advance of the legislative body. The mayor shall obtain the approval of the legislative body. That's not gonna happen under the current purchasing system. It's, I guess the, second sentence is moved.
Yeah, after the deletion of.
Right, after you delete the sole. Okay, there is no statutory requirement. This provision, however, serves to clarify both who has the power to enter into contracts and place limits on the power of the amount of $50,000.
That was a previous comment.
I got
but,
you.
yeah.
That's good. That's good. Any other questions on this? 17.
So we're deleting everything after the first sentence and deleting sole.
Correct.
Yes, deleting sole in the second sentence. Okay, all right, go ahead, Gavin.
L, current L, there weren't any indications that was, to be stricken, but, the purchasing regulations, that may need to be changed.
Yeah, that has to be done, develop purchasing regulations in conjunction with the finance committee and finance director. Yeah, that's currently the way it works. Those policies are set by the finance committee. Okay. Do you have anything else other than going over to 18?
No, 304 is, you had a comment there, same state law. I'm assuming that's something you wanted to remain in there, but if you wanted it stricken, we can do that.
I wanted to say that actually county commission has the ability to give the mayor a raise within those ranges that are set by statute. Our mayor right now is at the minimum threshold level. I don't know if everybody realizes that. When Mayor Lynch was in office, I think he was 2 steps up. Then a motion was made on county commission approved to set when Iwanski took over to bring it back down to the state minimum. And Terry has served at the state minimum since she's been here. County commission could raise that, and he's got that in here. As may be from time to time amended by the Tennessee General Assembly, shall be adjusted annually. The mayor's salary shall be changed from time to time by resolution of the legislative body. So that's good. You may decide at some point you want the mayor to not be at that minimum level, and the county commission can give that person a raise.
It's like we can't do that during the year in which the mayor is to be elected.
So that's probably a pretty smart sentence. You couldn't get a controlling party that controlled the county commission, get their person in as mayor, and immediately say, we're gonna give you a raise. They're gonna have to wait a year to do that. 305 is with state law, pretty
Mhm.
much. Okay, are you at 306?
I am.
Okay,
There was a note to add statutory language to 306, and I had a question as to which or what language.
okay. The mayor except where otherwise provided in Tennessee law, the Constitution, or state. Yeah, the way y'all inserted, except where otherwise provided in Tennessee law, the Constitution, or this charter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's subject to approval by the legislative body. So the mayor may create or abolish major departments of county government, with each department having a department director. The department directors of the county shall be appointed by the mayor. Now, that's not always the case there. Again, as I told you before, like the HR director,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case there.
Sure.
It's
The
not the
finance
case in my job. The finance director is not. So there is some differences there. The department directors of the county shall be appointed by the mayor. Well, there's some differences there. They're not all, and shall be subject to dismissal by the mayor without cause. So that means they're at will, and a new mayor could come in and fire every director in the county and appoint new directors. That's dangerous. So I'm trying to think. We had let's see, tourism is appointed by the tourism board, subject to confirmation from county commission. At one time, EMS had a medical review board, but it's been, gosh, Nathan's been here a long time. We've not had to use it since then, and I don't think they meet. They made a recommendation to county commission. Directors.
Jay, could that be changed to say the department directors of the county appointed by the mayor shall be subject to dismissal by the mayor?
Yeah, that's fine, but trying to think of how they're all created. Well, the first thing is what Steve said. Only the ones that are appointed by the mayor can be fired by the mayor. If there's another process in place, either by state law, resolution, then that will control.
You, the finance director?
The finance directors, the finance committee, subject to county commission confirmation. But I don't want the mayor's people having to be, her having to get county commissioner, keep saying her, I'm sorry, get county commission approval to fire a director in her department. Like if she wanted to terminate planning and zoning, for instance,
Yeah.
that's under her purview, and I don't think
Yeah,
the
yeah.
county
Department
mayor.
directors
Right,
appointed by the mayor.
right.
Mm-hmm.
She should be
Follow
able to
me
let them go.
there.
too.
So only the ones appointed by the mayor,
Mm-hmm.
and there's certainly different processes for the selection and the termination, and they all are either by state law, private act, resolution.
By state law, aren't we in that will, Tennessee in that will?
Yes, and that will state. Well, there's one group of people in Anderson County that are just cause, and that is civil service board employees. A lot of people think, well, all sheriff's employees. No, the classified service, which is the majority of the deputies, but the sheriff's personal secretary, the chief deputy, and the cooks at the jail are at will. So the sheriff can come in and immediately fire for no reason at all his personal secretary, his chief deputy, and he should have the ability to select his own chief deputy. And the cooks at the jail, that must be something from the old days. You know, there was a lot of Tennessee counties where the sheriff's wife cooked for the jail. they actually lived in it. That was pretty interesting, but, yeah, you follow me on
I
that?
got it.
Okay. All right, law director.
Well,
In that part A, right at the end of it, to me, it sounds like you say the park director of the county appointed by the mayor, shall be residents of the county at the time of decision and subject to dismissal. It seems like that and shall be residents of the county right after dismissal without cause and shall be residents of the county at the time. I think what really is that all of these directors shall be residents of the county at the time they assume duties and all times while serving the county. And then in addition to that, the mayor has the authority for a dismissal.
Yeah,
So I'm saying that it seems like that was just stuck on the end there,
yeah.
and it doesn't make sense in the sentence to me.
The other thing is, we have directors that do not live in this county. That could be a problem. And there's some case law where that's really frowned upon, making a residency requirement unless it's justified on a rational basis. So that, making all directors residents of the county, is gonna be difficult. We've got a couple that I know of that don't live in this county. But now,
Maybe we just after without cause, the rest needs to be deleted. The requirement to be a resident throughout the time, from when they're hired and throughout the time they work in that job. If we're not making that a requirement.
okay, on that the department directors of the county, you're gonna say that are appointed by the mayor, right?
Well, by the county, appointed by the mayor,
Appointed by the mayor, okay?
shall be subject to dismissal by the
so
mayor without cause.
That changes that shall be appointed, meaning that all of them appointed by the mayor, shall be subject to dismissal by the mayor without cause, and shall be resident of the county at the time they assume the duties of their office.
So you just delete
at all
the
times.
first shall be, and then appointed by the mayor shall be subject to dismissal.
Yeah, well, the way we've amended it fixes it. Do y'all want to impose a residency requirement on departmental directors? We don't have that now, so that's a change.
I don't think we should. We were kind of instructed to not change things, didn't
Right.
need change.
Now, there's a residency requirement on my job.
Yeah,
There's a residency requirement for all you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
and the elected officials, but I kinda hate to impose it. I know it's frowned upon by courts. I hate to,
If we don't have it now, then I like to stick with what we said
Yeah.
we was gonna do with a lot of stuff in these
Exactly.
things
I
as
think
it
we
is.
need to strike
That's it.
after the mayor without cause,
okay,
and just
You
strike
got
that
that,
whole thing
Gavin?
about the residency requirement of the directors.
okay, let's jump into law director here. The Office of County Law Director for Anderson County, Tennessee is hereby created and established. This is where, I think we said to go ahead and reference the private act
Okay.
as provided.
Yeah,
This is the private act.
Exactly, you got the language,
You
but,
just want it, excuse me, you just want it
yeah,
referenced. Okay.
exactly. What is it, chapter 77,
Mhm.
2006 or something. Shoot, I can't- The Legal Service Advisory Committee is hereby created to assist with the implementation, establishment of the office, of the law director, and development of plot. Update, notify members of recent legal issues within the county government at regular intervals to be determined by the Legal Services Advisory Committee. The Legal Services Advisory shall monitor and provide oversight to the office of county law director, is directed for the purpose of providing assistance when needed. Evaluation concerns, monitoring policy compliance. The Legal Services Advisory Committee will develop the job description and require qualifications for the law director and staff, and will develop the selection process for the director's position. On two-thirds majority vote, the Legal Services Advisory Committee will select and recommend a candidate for final confirmation by majority vote. It's two-thirds vote to be selected by the county commission.
Okay.
You've gotta have two-thirds at the legal services and two-thirds at county commission, I believe that.
You may be right.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Okay. Yeah, he he's just basically copied the private
Yeah.
act here. If you don't mind reference that private
Sure,
act, and
sure.
will, as created by chapter 77 of 2006 private acts. Any questions on that?
Leaving the discussion of how it generally works, but just saying it's in accordance with the private acts and reference that properly, and then kind of have this thing saying this is kind of generally how it goes, I think is still a good idea. Not just to leave it in accordance with the private act and make somebody look it up.
That's what he's done right
Yeah,
here.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, I like this.
Yeah, I do too. You can
Yeah.
turn to the charter and without trying to fish through private acts in Tennessee, which
Mhm.
is sometimes hard to find.
That was my concern in doing it this way, doing both the Board of Education, had a private act, and the law director had a private act. The reason I did it was because, somebody's
I
gonna have to
like
go
it.
look for a private
like
act.
it.
But if you want it to just have, the pre-existing private act that exists shall continue to exist after the adoption of this charter, if you want it like that big, I can
Yeah.
do that too, or I can have it,
No, I think what we're talking about is that we say that it's done in accordance with this private act,
Yeah.
and as follows.
Okay.
You'd still have this
So how it
description.
He's recited the
Yeah.
private act
Right
right
out
Okay.
of
here.
yeah.
Mhm.
Thank goodness you took that raise provision. I was taking
well-
the lead on that.
Which
Jeez.
states
well, that's a
in-
joke
Jay
that I,
Yeager's put a raise in for
Which
himself.
states in part.
I was gonna be making as much as a circuit court judge. That's not gonna float around here at all.
Oh, yeah. that's right.
Evidently it works in Knox County,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
not in this county. Okay, we're,
that's right.
other officers,
yeah, this will be a point of discussion, I think, for you all. The other officers, I've gone ahead and included circuit court clerk and clerk and master under.
I hate to laugh, Gavin, but your first comment there is the Knox County case, isn't it? Poor John.
Well, yeah,
He
poor
probably
John.
hates even
Yeah.
looking at that, but
Yeah,
that was, what was it, you left out John left out the register of deeds, or it wasn't really John's fault. He
Right.
had to
Right,
defend it. I
right.
think it was more Moyer's, and
Right.
the charter commission that left out the register of deeds and
mhm,
something else over there,
Mhm.
but, that caused a whole turmoil over the Knox County charter. and
yeah,
Those
terrible.
constitutional offices have to be in here, there's no way
Yeah,
around it.
that's right.
correct.
And, so, go ahead,
So I've got the constitutional offices in Article 4. However, I've included the circuit court clerk and the clerk and master under Article 5 in the judicial branch. If you'd like it moved to Article 4 as other officers, from what I understand, those are, they're county positions, but they are technically within the judicial branch. But if you want them in other officers, I think that will be
I
okay.
think we should make one back, just so.
Yeah,
there's
because they're
no
elected
confusion.
officials.
Yeah,
I agree with Saber, but I don't mind you reference them in judicial,
Yeah.
because they have such a huge role.
Okay.
Both the clerk and master and I hate to even call Rex the circuit court clerk, because it consists of general sessions, juvenile court, and every other thing over there, and it's really a court clerk, but, the way we talk about it in Anderson County, it's a circuit court clerk, but, the one, I'm missing the highway superintendent, don't wanna miss Gary.
It's,
You got it?
yeah,
Good, good.
I've included it in general, but
Right.
if that's the decision, then I can move it up to
Lord,
other
this is
officers.
one area we don't wanna mess up on.
Okay, well,
Property assessor, sheriff, register of deeds, county clerk, trustee,
yeah, I think all of our elected positions should be under that,
Okay.
under all
yeah,
officers.
it
Just
certainly,
so people don't say we were trying to do anything.
sure.
yeah, I like that, Saber, other officers,
Yep.
and I think that's important,
You
they are
agree with
elected.
that?
And they don't have to go searching to try to find
Right.
other positions.
Good point.
I still don't see the road commission.
He's got it in another spot.
It's,
didn't he say?
yeah,
Okay.
and if you wanna skip ahead, that's totally,
But I still agree with what Saber said, you might
Sure.
wanna move it back to other officers and just reference it again.
well, the reason, I'll go ahead and tell you, the reason that it's in 820 on page 38, if you wanna flip over to it. The reason I did it like this, was because the county uniform highway law has to be specifically adopted by the charter per statute.
Right.
And so I've done that there, and so in this section, I've both adopted the county uniform highway law and tried to incorporate the private act, that's a B, C, and D, establishing the superintendent of roads. So, to me, that was a separate kind of section, other than an elected position, so that's why I did it, but I'm happy to move it to
Okay,
Article
Could it be referenced in the
yeah,
first one and then
exactly,
listed
but
as one of these?
he's got a very good point.
Yeah.
But I like Saber's point, I like having it listed, but this county uniform highway law, it has to be put in the charter.
Correct.
The other thing is, we don't have an elected road committee, okay, and that's one of the provisions in that uniform, highway law, so make sure we don't have that. The road committee is appointed by county commission. There's 4 years. Yeah, I think this is, I'll probably need to go through that uniform highway law, but we really operate under it now. Other than the fact we don't have the optional elected road commissioners.
Okay.
Lord, we forgot the highway superintendent. That'd be a bad day for me, Gary, I think
Me
he'd
too.
chirping, nodding my head.
So we're gonna move that one and the circuit court clerk.
Yeah, what
Right.
he's gonna do is reference them under
Right.
other elected officials there,
Right.
what do you have?
Other
And
officers.
then he's gonna define them more under these different areas.
Right.
So they'll actually be in 2 different places at least.
Sure.
Yeah, it could even have, that position, little description, as seen in part,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. Okay, we're back to, everybody okay with that, other officers, section, section 4? And then going into the judicial branch, which I don't think we wanna mess with,
Okay.
remember, we have, General Sessions 2
Is-
by private act. I see juvenile court by private act. A lot of counties will have juvenile court with their general sessions concurrent jurisdiction, but we have a separate juvenile court. We have Division 1, Division 2 general sessions. They don't necessarily have geographic divisions in the county, but we have one in General Sessions 2 in Oak Ridge for convenience of the Oak Ridge citizens. We have such a large population down there, and also the police department and the merchants down there really love that. But those are all private act.
Okay.
You got those? Have you seen those?
I
before?
haven't, no, but
Yeah.
I've got,
They are, okay. Probate still stays with the chancery, there's no
Okay.
separate judge here. We have a child support magistrate, one time they were called the referee, but we have a magistrate. That's under the direct supervision of the chancellor. County commission has nothing to do with that position other than, I think funding of a space and maybe a little funding. I think the state takes care of their salary, just like the chancellor and the circuit court judge. Then you've got 2 general sessions, you've got juvenile court. Am I missing anything there on the courts? Saber, you know this good. I think we got it
I
all.
think that's it.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
in Article 4, we're gonna add some.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Is there a purpose for the order that they're in? Cause it starts with a P and then an S, should it be in alphabetical order or something? The other question I have is the 4.06, it seems like that should be 4.1, because instead of being a list of these people, suddenly it's something that applies to all of them, the elections and filling vacancies. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
Instead of,
So you're talking about they're all distinguished by identifying them as 4.05, 4.04, and you'd like to see 4.06 be a 4.1 to separate it apart as it applies to all.
yeah, because suddenly it's not it's no longer part of the list,
Yeah, I got you.
okay? And then the other ones we had in there would just fill in the extra numbers.
Sure.
And I was wondering if it doesn't, it seems like it should have been like these positions would be in alphabetical order, so somebody could just go down the list.
Well, Johnny Alley's gonna tell you it's done by most important position,
Yeah.
which to a lot of us means a lot.
Yeah, property
Tax.
assessor is pretty important.
Yeah.
I don't know,
got-
that's just an idea, it's
Yeah.
not like it's such a long list that people have to go through pages to find the
Gotcha.
one to look for.
All right, we ready to move to Article 5 here, judicial branch?
But I think that 4.1 instead of being 06, because you'd be expecting to see another person in position there instead of this kind of the election filing, filling vacancies. Because that clearly is a section that only discusses these officials.
Okay, we got it. I'm on 5. I do like this part where the legislative body by ordinance can create additional divisions of general session. Instead of doing the private act. And they can abolish. They can abolish now, but it has to go through that private act process. Okay, exclusive jurisdictions over ordinance. Okay, you have a section on their pay? Because general session is done by state law, and they're a little bit different than the circuit court judge and the
505
chancellor.
505 is altering compensation.
Okay.
It doesn't set a compensation or say how it's determined, but it,
Do you, what about on these other elected officials? Did you reference their compensation?
I don't think so.
I think, they're all set, that I can see here, by state law. Property, sheriff, register of deeds, county clerk, trustee, they're all state law. Highway super is state law, judiciary is state law. The juvenile court is paid the same as the general sessions court. I think they're all state law. And that is a statute, so you can just reference that statute.
Sure.
I believe the general sessions statute is separate though.
So, I'd like to clarify one thing. Whenever we're talking about the probate and the child support magistrate within Chancery, well, general sessions 1 and 2, juvenile court, you want that referenced in the last line of B there, any general sessions courts? Should juvenile courts be included there as well?
Yes,
Okay,
yes, definitely.
that's what,
Yeah, I don't wanna take away the ability for this charter. I wanna make sure we reference juvenile court. It's very important in this county. Otherwise, that entire docket is stuck on the 2 general sessions judges, and they've got a big enough docket as it stands. And that's just such a unique area of the law, the juvenile court. It's much different than handling the normal general sessions docket.
I got a question.
Yes,
Do we
sir.
not need
Yes,
to list the circuit court judge, the district attorney, and the public defender? Should we not list them in
Well,
here?
We talked about this, when we got into the chancery, court, the clerk and master. I think the thing to keep it in line with, if it's not in the charter, it doesn't exist, theory.
Okay.
I think we need to at least name those, even though they are state officers.
That's right, maybe
They're-
identify that
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
based on
Um,
the state stuff.
They're state officers, paid through the state, but they're very much a part of the judicial system of Anderson County. We're talking about the the Chancery Court, Chancellor, Circuit Court Judge, DA, Public Defender. That's it.
Yeah,
Those are all paid by the state, but they're
yeah,
I just think we
just
should
they're
list
not
something
forgotten,
in there.
because they're critical parts of
the
the
critical
system.
part. And again, you wanna kind of think about this as you're going through. If it's not mentioned in the charter, you may have issues as to it not existing, even though there's a state statute.
That's right.
I think it's better for our citizens to pick it up.
Good point.
A citizen will pick this up and say, hey, there's no circuit court judge. Well, those questions would come to my office, and that's additional work. But anyway, I like doing it where it's referenced at least. that
Okay.
Somebody can pick this up and say, there's no changes in our judiciary. That's not what we want. That's exactly what we want. We want to keep it the same.
Can I ask one more
Yes,
thing then?
sir.
With respect to that, you want the chancellor or the DA and the public defender, you want those in other officers?
Yes,
In
but
our number
reference
before,
that
in
they're
our- in
state
reference
officers.
in-
You might have another section like Steve was talking about, state officers
Okay.
of the county, something along those lines, elected state officers of the county.
Okay.
Because, the judicial district, the 7th, is only Anderson County. We're very unique, for a county our size. And, we could be combined with several other counties, but thank goodness we've got our own DA, we've got our own public defender, and our own circuit court judge and chancellor. They're not on the circuit where they have to go to several different counties. Okay, rules of evidence, abolishing privilege. Okay, the abolishment can only happen during the term of office, right? So if there was, say, the county commission chose to abolish general sessions 2, there's no intention that I know to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They would have to go through the private act process, which is established by private act, and it had to be after the term of the incumbent, before the new person, it would apply to the new person.
Correct.
Okay. Education, this is the area that, another area I think we pretty much agreed we'd stay away. Is there any changes here?
This is, so last meeting in February, this is what was presented to you, and this has, just a few changes here.
Do you have the private act we passed?
This
on that?
is essentially the private
Good.
act. I've called the Board of Education Board,
Yeah.
since we're no longer calling the
Yeah,
legislative body board.
Good.
I've
Right.
changed C. You mentioned that it needs to be a qualified successor at the next general election. That was a quick comment that you wanted changed.
yeah, that's consistent with state law.
correct,
It's done
yes,
that
sir.
now.
E, so I think we had conversation on E last time about pinning the school board districts to the county commission districts.
That's the way it's been since we
Right.
put that private act in place.
I think we read this to do that. And so I think it does. I don't know if there are any other interpretations or.
Yeah,
Well, you've got in here identical to the geographic composition to the Anderson County Legislative Body district boundary.
I think the concern, so it says as they exist on, I think the concern was they shall, the legislative body shall reapportion. So it complies with constitutional requirements, but I didn't know if they wanted to make it automatically
It
pinned.
would apply to them too. When county commission reapportions and we
Okay.
change the district boundaries for county commissioners, we change the district boundaries for the school board.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, and if we look at where these guys live and stuff like that, we don't intentionally district somebody out of where he's been for.
Well, Jerry White's going to disagree with you, isn't he, BL? Because that actually happened to Jerry.
Yeah.
I mentioned that before, but,
Well, I mean, but I'm not saying it never
Well, it-
happens, but
Well,
it's
yeah.
like-
What happened, he put he and Ron Higgins in the same district,
remember there was 9 at that time.
and there was 9, but they in the same district. Jerry said, that's fine, said, I'm gonna run for
Run for
county commission.
It worked out great, but, when I was drafting that private act, I said, this man's gonna hate me. He's the odd man out, but Jerry had a plan and it worked out great, so, that's how it went from 9 to 8 and mirrored the county commission districts.
My lot line's my district now.
Mm-hmm.
Skipping ahead to page 26 on subsection F,
Mm-hmm.
I think there was some debate on how the secretary shall be appointed for the board. The minutes specify that the director of school shall appoint the secretary.
What is the executive officer of the board? That's different than the chair. What is
Yeah,
that?
That's a
The
superintendent.
superintendent,
I know.
the superintendent is
CEO,
the secretary.
Director of schools.
Well, look at the first line of that. The director of schools, okay, shall be the executive officer of the board.
Mhm.
Okay,
Hmm.
the director of schools operates at the discretion of the board. If anything, they may be ex officio non-voting members, but they report to the board.
Yeah,
I
I've
don't
seen
think
something
they-
different than that, that the director of schools is like I think it's the word is secretary, and then they elect a director or a
Yeah.
chair or something.
The board elects its chair, the way it is
Yeah.
now, okay?
All right,
And the board appoints the superintendent of the schools.
schools.
And
Yeah.
most of the time, he's on a contract.
Yep.
As you heard last night, Tim just announced he got a new 4-year contract. I fully applaud that effort. Tim does a great job. But, I just have a trouble. I think I'd feel better if I knew what the executive officer of the board, it seems to me, it almost is saying the chair, and that's not right. You don't want you want them to be independent
Mhm.
of each other, because the board hires and fires that director of schools. Is that right, VL? I'm gonna lean on you,
Well, same as with Bob here,
right?
right when the BEP was finalized, I think I believe this came about 1996, 95 or 96, that all systems in Tennessee would appoint the director of school. And that was the only person the board hired.
Right. Now, wasn't there
The board
some
was
out there by
responsible,
private act or
the
something?
board was responsible. I remember Dr. Burrow looking at me
Mhm.
when it happened, he said, plainly, he said, now, this is where things change. We set the policy, you hire the personnel.
You make it work. I like that.
Isn't that right?
Bob, is that basically the way it was for you at Oak Ridge?
Yeah, the director of schools, of course, was appointed by the board,
Right.
and, our board elected their own chair.
That's the
Right.
way it is here.
Yeah.
And, so, I'm looking at this, I'm not sure I see a problem.
Except with that first sentence of F, that's the one that gives me the trouble.
The director of schools shall be the executive officer of the board. I think it's just,
It's,
it's just saying he's a superintendent, and he's the director of schools, what is your issue with that
I don't know what the executive officer of the board is. It says the director of schools shall be the executive officer of the board. The board is a separate entity, and I like that. I think you two both worked under systems where you operated separate and apart from the board. They hired and fired you, but you put their policies and their hiring, you put that in place, and you made it work. But I don't know what the executive officer of the board is.
Well, it should be I guess you'd say the CEO, but they're not a member of the board.
No, and see, that seems
And
to
they
imply
are
that
elected
they are a
by the
member
people.
of the
The
board.
board's elected by the people,
Right,
so,
And they appoint, the board appoints the chairman, their own chairman for the board.
the best way to word that would be that they're the CEO of the school system.
right, I think that's good. We're fortunate, we have two
Where you can-
long-serving director of schools here, both for the county and Oak Ridge.
I looked at the private act
Yeah.
from 2002. That's not something that comes out of there. It must have come from a Knox County charter.
You know, I'm wondering
So
if
if you
that-
want to just strike it, it's,
I've seen this where they might be the executive secretary to the board,
mhm.
but the next sentence
Right,
doesn't
it
support that. It
provides
says the
for it.
director of schools shall appoint the secretary, and that's the way it works here now.
Mhm.
The director of schools appoints Pam to be the secretary. Okay,
But this goes ahead and clarifies that the director of schools is not the chair of the board and doesn't preside, is not the presiding officer, and that's just the way it
Yeah.
Where did this language,
It must have come from the sample language in the Knox County charter. I can look it up and go see why they did that and what their structure is, but I don't think it's anything in the 2002 private act here, or it's anything
But I like
that's,
what VL recommended. Is there any way to say the director of schools shall be the chief executive officer of the schools,
Of the school system.
of the school system?
I seem to recall in something I've already read where it says that the director is the secretary for the board.
Now, he's changed that. He's got the director
Yeah, I
of
know.
schools shall
I
appoint.
think that's the way it is now. with
I've
our
seen that
system.
before. That happens from time to time.
And that and they select a chair, and the chair is the presiding officer.
But the problem is, you don't want your director of schools sitting around doing an agenda and the minutes and taking notes. They need to be more involved in the meeting and discussion. You need to have a separate individual being the secretary.
Well, in any position, you can have somebody doing
Yeah.
roles.
What?
I mean, if I was the secretary of something and I wanted to be able to be more involved, I'd have somebody else there taking the notes and taking the minutes and doing the agendas and all that stuff.
I think it's a question of calling the superintendent the secretary of the
exactly.
board. But, actually, we had a lady that came in, she
Sure.
was.
The Secretary of
she was
Energy
truly
doesn't
the
do a lot of
secretary,
Sure.
you know.
paperwork.
I agree, but my point is, we want to spell it out the way it works. We don't want anybody to, okay, well, yeah, but they can appoint a secretary. Well, if you want them to give the secretarial duties to the director of schools, which I'm not in favor of, and say, well, they can appoint a secretary, I'd just soon say here, just like it is, the director of schools shall appoint a secretary for the board. Or either that, the board appoints a secretary, but I think the way it works here, the director says who the secretary is. Okay, that's the only thing that we definitely need to change there is first
chief,
sentence.
yeah, gotcha.
How's everybody doing on energy? We're closing in on 9.
I was gonna ask, is this the charter in its entirety?
Yes.
We're having 9 sections.
As a,
No, well, there'll be one more, 10 of miscellaneous things
Because I was
that
gonna
they.
say, we got 4 commissioners that were here late, Annette and you. And if we don't have to go through all of it, I think that we need to go home, do our
sure,
homework,
it's,
and make our own notes. That way we'll be better prepared next meeting, because we're gonna start doing 2
Okay.
meetings a month now, right?
Yeah, until we get caught up, and unless you wanna go for the November election. I'm marking, we're at page 27, or do you need to have anything else on 26? Yeah.
Well, this
we'll review
director
it.
of schools thing has to be
Yeah.
fixed.
All right, let's start at 26, and let's do this. I like Commissioner Beauchamp's idea. You've got 2 sets of private acts, or they're actually bound in one now. In the intervening period of time, please go through here, and all I'm asking you to do is read them and cross them out, the ones you don't wanna see. If you wanna see them, put some kind of mark on it and say,
Yeah, or
these
say,
need to be
why
included.
would we need this, or
Or
something.
just scratch it out, say, I don't have that one, I
Would
don't
you
like
like us to email you? Will that make it easier
No,
too?
no,
Or
it
just
doesn't.
bring it to you?
Just be ready to go, and Is that okay with everybody? I'm
Mhm.
pushing the limits of the people that were here last night, I know I am. Mr. Chair, what do you think? You wanna break from this meeting, adjourn this meeting, and schedule another meeting to pick up on page 26 of Gavin's handout, in the intervening period of time, each member go over the private acts when you have a chance. The ones we wanna scratch
Okay.
through them, the ones you wanna keep, make another note, whatever it takes.
This thing we just talked about, in the copy I already had, it says, "The director of schools shall be the secretary of the Board of Education
Right.
and the executive officer of the board."
Yeah, I just don't know what the executive officer means. I like what DL came up with, the chief executive officer of the school system.
But whatever it says in state law is what we need to go by.
I don't think doesn't reference that.
I don't think so.
I
I'll
think
look
that's
and
something
I'll
Knox County had, and they may have good rationale for it. They thought through a lot of this stuff. But anyway, if you come up with
be,
a,
sure.
what was the impetus for that language or the root, but, VL, what do you think about adjourning this meeting? Do you wanna set another one, which would be at our first Monday, our regular scheduled meeting of April?
We've already discussed this
Mhm.
while you were out, so we hope it'll work. We'll meet the first Monday
Mhm.
and the third Wednesday.
Got it.
And that, first Monday's just 13 days away, so.
Right, so it'll be.
First Monday and the third
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Is everybody okay with that? I guess you already
Yeah,
said.
we can do that.
Okay, is everybody okay with
The chair was the only one that had a problem with
Yeah.
it, but he said he'd work it out.
what, a golf time deal?
No,
Okay.
church.
Got it. That's the reason we don't schedule any meetings here on Wednesday. Anything else that Gavin and myself can do for you during this period? I've got the miscellaneous sections that they're not working on that you told me to include. You voted on all those before, the enterprise zones and things like that. We'll do an extra chapter for those. And then, we'll pick it back up on the first Monday at 6 o'clock. Everybody okay with that? Chuck, you good with that?
And something we can work on in the meantime is I think that one of the important things we're gonna need for our education thing is what things are we doing that are any different than we
Absolutely.
did with them?
That's what people wanna know.
That's gonna be the big question.
Yeah.
What's
What-
changing? What would change?
That's exactly it. As you heard DL talk before, we're not advocating anything, in these educational, literature. We're saying, we wanna tell you what we've done.
Yeah.
We're mandated to put this charter out. These are the changes. And, you know, we might say why we did them, but other than that, we need to do a good job.
And
of
here are a few
education.
places that are advantages
Exactly.
to the county
That's
and
why we did
and
it.
our citizens.
Basically, everything stayed the same, but we tweaked it to here.
That's it. That's it. And why we did it, and other than that, I think the vast majority of people wanna see it the same. As what I've heard many times before, what's wrong with what happened in 1801? Okay.
If I may, I just have
Yes.
one thing real quick. In the draft that was given out today, John, I think, and I are still going over the conflict of interest provisions in 803, I believe.
There's a bunch
So
of new
believe-
law.
Yeah.
Right, so,
Be
so
ready.
be ready. That still needs to be worked on
Yeah.
and changed, so I'm just preparing you for that, and I can have
I
a,
will check, there's some laws that are in progress right now in the legislature that address.
It happens like every 2 years.
so I'll have a new section for you on that one.
You might, do some general conflict stuff and just reference the state law.
And
Yeah,
reference
and make
state
sure
law.
whenever you're adding it in there, that we're not having to come back to charter every 2 years
That's
to
it.
amend it.
Okay.
So
Because, no joke,
make the
they
wording
changed that.
say based
Okay.
upon state
Yeah.
law or whatever.
It's,
Got
they change those conflict statutes all the time.
Yeah.
VL, and this is probably a question for the board, but I don't want to address it to you. Do you want me to contact Steve Emmer and see if he's interested in serving?
Or do we need to
Well, how
replace
about-
it?
How about, sending me his phone number? Let me give him a call.
Sounds good. Let's do it right now, because my feeble mind these days. think the world of Steve. He's a good man, but his new job is just taking up a lot of his time. And, I just don't think we've kind of witnessed, he's just not had the time to get here. All righty. Anything else we can do for you guys? Thank you for your time. It was a good 3-hour meeting.
Dot,
We're plugging away.
I think we got a lot done.
any,
Well,
Other
this is all the private action.
thing-
okay?
any other things come before? Then a motion to adjourn's in order.
So moved.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank y'all.